All right, good evening, everyone, and welcome to this evening's meeting for the Salem City Council and the Salem Urban Renewal Agency. I'll now call our meeting to order. This is the meeting for February 23rd for the Urban Renewal Agency, City of Salem. Would the recorder please call the roll?
Board Member Bennett?
Here.
Board Member Anderson?
Here.
Board Member Nanke?
Here.
Board Member McCoy?
Here.
Board Member Dickey? Here. Board Member Benjamin?
Here.
Board Member Benards?
Here.
Board Member Lewis?
Here.
Chair Peterson?
Here. Thank you. Will you please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, I see that we have no reports from boards or commissions.
Madam Mayor?
Yes.
If I may, I have two items at this point in the agenda. One would be to, I would move to approve the special meeting agenda for the Urban Renewal Agency.
All right, thank you. Is there a second to that motion?
I'll second it, Mayor.
Thank you. It's been moved by Member Danke and seconded by Member Bennett to approve the additions and deletions
No,
to...
special meeting agenda.
Oh, special meeting agenda. Thank you. It's been moved and seconded to approve the special meeting agenda. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed say nay. Motion carries. Thank you.
And then I would move approval of additions, deletions as are contained at your desk.
And there are. Would you like to describe what those are?
I can actually,
I have several things here.
well, not on the Urban Renewal Agency. It was just communication from Salem Kaiser Education Foundation.
Oh, the information report.
Correct.
All right.
Which will be further on in the agenda as well.
Thank you.
And I'm sure there will be some discussion.
All right. All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed say nay. Motion carries. Thank you. Do we have anyone signed up for public comment? We do. We have Karina Lee signed up. Mrs. Lee, welcome. Hi.
Good evening. For the record, I am Karina Lee, address Salem Kaiser Education Foundation, 233 Commercial Street, Northeast Salem, Oregon. My testimony this evening, I would like to read a letter to enter into the public record of a letter that was sent from SCEF to the Mayor Peterson, City Councilors, and the board members of the Urban Renewal Agency. Dear Mayor Peterson and board members, on behalf of the Board of Directors and Capital Campaign Committee of the Salem Kaiser Education Foundation, I really wish to thank you for your thoughtful consideration of our request for exemption from the RDURA Capital Improvement Grant Program to preserve the Starkey-McCauley building. We are acutely aware of the sensitivity of this request and appreciate staff's research and the council's historical perspectives around this program's criteria. Our campaign has achieved great momentum. We have widespread committed support for this project and know that our community to make the Mike McLaren Center for Student Success a reality. In light of the complexity of the deliberation and its long-ranging impact, as well as our deep desire to keep a positive working relationship with both you and the council, we respectfully withdraw our request for the waiver and the subsequent request for $300,000 of toolbox funds. We thank you again for the opportunity to engage in the process, and we invite each and every one of you to attend one of our hosted lunchbox tours to learn more about this project. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Are there any questions for Ms. Lee? Yes, Member Bennett.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Madam Mayor, I just wanted to thank Ms. Lee for her gracious letter on this issue and hope that we can all meet again around this issue again sometime. I really appreciate the thoughtfulness and information included in your letter.
Great. Look forward to that. Thank you. Yes, Member Anderson.
I just want to echo Councilor Bennett's comments. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yes, Member Nanki.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Yes, I would like to add that in. Wonderful letter. Thank you. Every one of us is supportive of the rehabilitation of the facility, so we want to make sure that that's not in question from either the City Council or the Urban Renewal Agency. It's a matter of how we get there.
So that mean you're going to bring your checkbook down to the lunchbox store?
It could be. How much does lunch cost?
I'll host
100,000?
lunch. I'll buy your lunch.
300,000.
Oh, my goodness. Well, I would like to say that if there are subsequent opportunities for letters of support or participation in your tours, I'd be very happy to participate with that. And I've heard other members also say letters of support would be something they'd be very happy to do if you find a point where that would be helpful.
Mayor Peterson and members of the council, please know that we will go ahead and ask for that.
Good.
It's been essential in our conversations with statewide organizations that are very interested in this organization. They ask a lot of them the same questions, and one of them is always, and please tell us how your city is supporting you. And those letters, individually, collectively, your presence at tours from these other organizations would be extremely powerful and much appreciated.
Good. Be happy to do that. All right. Thank you very
Thank you.
much. Okay. We have a consent calendar. Member Nanki, do you have a motion?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I would move the consent calendar, which consists of one item in regards to the North Gateway Urban Renewal Area Loan Program transfer of funds into the grant program.
Second.
All right. It's been moved by Member Nanki and seconded by Member Benars to adopt the consent calendar as presented. Are there any questions or comments?
Just to comment on
Yes.
that, it's like with the one action, I know we have to put it inside of the consent calendar, but it's a single item. It's actually good news in the respect that people are wanting to do things with their buildings, and so we're moving some more money across to the part that's being utilized from one that's not. So,
Excellent. Thank you. All right. The question on the floor. All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, say nay. Motion carries unanimously. Thank you. I direct your attention to, there is one information report in your agenda, and beyond that, there's no further business to come before this body, and we are adjourned. All right, it's now my pleasure to call to order this evening's meeting of the Salem City Council for February 27th. As soon as I get the right agenda in front of me, we'll be on board here. Excuse me, for February 23rd. Will the recorder please call the roll?
Counselor Bennett?
Here.
Counselor Anderson?
Here.
Counselor Nanki?
Here.
Counselor McCoy?
Here.
Counselor Dickey? Here. Counselor Benjamin?
Here.
Counselor Benars?
Here.
Counselor Lewis? Here. And Mayor Peterson.
Here, thank you. And Counselor Nanki, do you have a motion regarding the agenda?
I have a motion regarding approval of additions and deletions to the agenda, and I would so move that.
Second.
It's been moved by Counselor Nanki and seconded by Counselor Benars to approve the additions and deletions to the agenda. Are there any questions regarding those? All those in favor of the motion, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, say nay. Motion carries. Thank you. It's now time for comment from councilors and then our city manager. Do councilors have comment? Counselor Bennett.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Madam Mayor, I really want to take a moment to compliment Mark Bechtel on his sense of humor and I think good sense to accept the donation of sign art from MSNBC regarding the dangers in Bush Park posed by attack owls and as has been named, Owl Capone. I just really appreciated that. This event has brought us to national attention. I'm glad that Mark added to that it was so positive and so humorous. I really enjoyed the entire adventure he's been through with the folks at MSNBC.
Indeed. Yes, Councillor Benars.
I just wanted to say today I had the opportunity to partake in Salem Leadership Foundation's annual Rainfest golf tournament out at Salem Golf Course. We raised in excess of $60,000. For people who don't know what Salem Leadership Foundation is, it is a faith-based group of individuals with lightning rods in many different neighborhoods. It's a very grassroots effort to bring our community together in peace, having people working together to the betterment of our neighborhoods. Anyway, it was a wonderful day, and this is the 4th annual one that they've had, and by far the best weather that we've had. Some Rainfest. The reason they hold it in February is because everybody else holds these fundraising golf tournaments in August, and we were thinking, well, we'll have to slog it through and with rain and what have you, and snow and sleet and mud. And okay, there was a little mud out there, but it's wonderful, absolutely wonderful day out there on the golf course.
Fabulous, yes. Councillor Anderson and then Councillor McCoy.
I'm not sure if this is the right place to do it, but having said that, I'll do it anyway. And it may be part of my ongoing problem with emails on the city email, but sometime last week, and I neglected to mention this earlier today, but sometime I wrote the city manager with a copy to the mayor asking for some sort of report on the status of the north campus of the state hospital, which is in my ward. And I know from tangential comments that the state is looking at this now that their big crisis is over. They're actually trying to move forward on some stuff. So I think it's imperative that the council become involved in this, and maybe even to the extent of taking some positions, but at least so we can have a clarification of what the city's role is in the ongoing issue with the North Campus. And I hope maybe at the next meeting we could have a report.
We will. Based on your email, I've contacted some people at the state. Yes, I did. And we'll be preparing a report. The status, just in brief, is that they'll be deciding during this legislative session whether to fund the mitigation on the site. So we won't have that answer until the end of the process, but I think if the council wanted to write a letter to the legislature or contact legislators, it would need to come through the legislative committee, and that would be something you can consider.
Good. I will say I didn't receive the email, so I apologize, or I would have responded to you. We did last year create a committee, and Councillor Bennett has been on top of this project, as well as our city manager, Linda Norris, and there is a work group with the state of Oregon that's been working on this, and we've had regular kinds of updates on it. So fear not, it has not simply been dormant, but working through the process.
So we'll have an information report on the next council agenda item, and then.
Great, thank you very much.
Yes.
Good. All right. Other comments? Yes, Councillor McCoy.
I accepted it.
Oh, yes.
Don't need that.
And Councillor Anderson, will you do that as well? Get your microphone up there so it's in your face.
We just turned it away.
Oh, you just turned it away. All right. Okay. Good. Thank you. Yes.
Okay. I had an opportunity, I got an invite and I went to a reception for the Center for Community Innovation about a week ago. Very interesting, a room full of nonprofit folks, and their goal is to strengthen the nonprofit sector, promoting philanthropy and facilitating innovation to build and support a thriving community. And we're blessed to have all those people that do that very difficult work on pretty much small staffs with not much budget. And being a guy that runs a nonprofit, I sort of get that. But it's Ron Hayes and Phil McCorkle, who I know from when they worked at the food bank and now have moved on to do other things. They're sort of leading the drive, and it's really an asset to bring those folks together to learn from each other and best practices, and they've got a variety of training things up and running. So very encouraging and a great thing for our community to help those folks further the great mission they have. Very enjoyable evening.
Great. I'm glad that you attended that. That's wonderful. All right. Other comments? City Manager, do you have comments?
Yeah, well, I do. I'm actually going to ask, though, Peter Fernandez and then John Pascal just to give brief updates. These are all good news, and I want them to get the credit for what they've done. But we've, on the park parcel strip, we had a council report last meeting talking about that, and Peter's going to give an update, and John Pascal from our airport's going to give an update about the airport lighting project.
Certainly. Peter Fernandez, Public Works Director. So as part of our due diligence for the 4-acre site out at Riverfront Park, we entered into discussions with the Department of Environmental Quality to obtain a prospective purchasers agreement, which basically indemnifies us as purchasers from any contamination there might be underground. As a part of that, there was a small sliver, literally 40 feet long by 6 feet wide by 2 feet deep, that the DEQ wanted us to excavate and take away the dirt and then cap it. That was done successfully. We got good weather late last week, so one of our contractors of record went out and did the work successfully. Nothing of any consequence was found. The DEQ gave us permission to cap it, put back a foot of concrete and then a foot of riprap, and it's all done. So with that, that completes any work that we had to do with respect to the prospective purchasers agreement. I don't know if the judge has entered an order yet, but once that happens, and that'll be in place as we, steadily continue on our way to finalizing the purchase of the parcel. So it was great work done by the contractor, great work done by our staff and the consultants of the owner who had done a significant amount of work to get us to that point.
And I believe, City Manager, you had
And
another...
Councilor Bernards, did you?
I just wanted to speak briefly to, so what did the cost of this remediation cost us?
I think it was on the order of $30,000, and that's all off the purchase price. So
Off
it
the
did,
purchase price, so the city doesn't have to, it didn't come out of city
correct.
funds. Thank you.
Ultimately, will not come out of city funds.
Ultimately.
And Mr. Pascal, did you want to just give a quick update on the airport lighting project?
Thank you. Good evening, Mayor and Council. My name is John Pascal. Those of you that have never met me, I'm the airport manager here in the city of Salem. And I provided an information report, but was asked to come and do a brief presentation on a very important project that the airport completed this past summer. Let's see, if you're anything like me, you'd prefer to see pictures and listen to me prattle on. So, all right. How's it go on the screen? Oh, sorry. I think that's you. Okay, there we go. For those of you that may not be aware, the airport this past summer completed a $3.3 million infrastructure project, primarily an airfield electrical improvement, but also a runway safety project. Of the $3.3 million, 90% was funded through FAA grants with 10% local match. Just some fun statistics and some photos here. The electrical portion of the project involved really a complete removal and replacement of the entire airfield electrical system at the airport, from the electrical vault out to the various lighting systems, the navigational aids, et cetera, and then back to the vault. It included about 42 miles of cable, conduit, and wiring, 722 runway and taxiway lights, 105 directional signs, 2 windsocks, 5 constant current regulators, on and on and on, essentially the entire lighting system. The runway safety portion of the project, and it's a little bit, there really were no good pictures. I'll try and use my laser pointer at least on this. There's a small piece of pavement right between these 2 runways here. It's part of Taxiway November. And the problem with that is that it creates what the FAA refers to as a hot spot. And if you have an aircraft that's sitting on that piece of pavement, it's in the safety area of both runways, which is not allowed. And so there's a safety factor there. And they asked us during this project to go ahead and remove that hot spot. So that piece of pavement is now gone. So that was the runway safety piece, although I think that keeping the electrical system energized and not on the verge of imminent failure is also a safety component. Some photos here of some of the lights. obviously before they were put in. This is kind of an interesting photo. The left side shows just a small portion of the major amount of concrete that was exhumed out of the primary runway. This is how airfield lighting systems were constructed back in the 60s. And on the right side, you can see a new taxiway light with about 24 inches by 24 inches by maybe 12 inches deep of concrete that we use today. So it was a massive amount of removal of concrete, cabling, and all the other infrastructure from the old system. Here's an example of a taxiway sign that was incorrectly located and incorrectly signed. On the right side is the correct way to do it, and it's in its new location. So there are a lot of those type of corrections too to keep us in compliance with the FAA. This is an example of the complexity of this project. Because we are essentially removing all of the lighting systems on the airport, and yet we wanted to keep the airport operational during the entire summer, we spent weeks putting together an 11-phase phasing plan that essentially moved the contractor into various work areas throughout the project so that we always had a route to get aircraft to one of the 4 departure thresholds of the 2 runways. And so it took a lot of staff time, coordination with contractors, consultants, air traffic control, and airport users to put this plan together so that it was workable, and it worked just about to perfection. The only closure we couldn't avoid was the closure at midfield when we had to take out all the lighting systems at the cross of the runway. Of course, we couldn't have any aircraft operating during that time. So, but essentially that was it, and at the end of the day what we got was a nice new shiny lighting system. Picture photo credit Ron Sturba, and yeah, that's it. And I also wanted to mention too, in the staff report you'll see that one of the benefits of this upgrade too is that it removed all of the old incandescent lighting and replaced all of the airfield lighting with new LED lighting, which we expect will save somewhere between 30% to 50% for the airport in terms of energy costs, and then of course long life in the bulbs. So that is it. The project was completed September 8th on time, on budget. No complaints from any users, no issues, and we now have a safe, secure system that meets all FAA criteria and design standards.
Thank you, John.
Thank you.
Wonderful, thank you. We're pleased to have that done. Good job. Yes, Councilor Benars.
I just had a real quick question, if I may. So, contractor, I just want to know, was that contractors from the Salem area, or were they?
The prime contractor was Kodiak Pacific. I believe they're in Tualatin.
So they're somewhat local.
Somewhat local, and then the prime electrical contractor was H&H, and they work primarily out of Portland, but do a lot of airport-specific projects. Very knowledgeable about airport systems, which is great for us if we do have any kind of a future issue. They are in the local area as well.
I'd just like to see that money retained in the geographic area rather than leaving to some out-of-state company. That's good news. Thank you.
You bet. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mayor.
Are there any other comments by councilors? All right, we'll move ahead. Public comment. And do we have someone signed up? We do. Deborah Maynard has signed up.
Hi, I'm Deborah Cohen-Marianov, and I'm here with the Human Rights and Relations Advisory Committee. I'm here with fellow Commissioner Scott McDonald and with our staff liaison Gretchen Bennett. We're here tonight to introduce ourselves, particularly for the new city councilors, and also to give you an update on our 2015 work report. This commission was established by the Salem City Council over 50 years ago in 1964 in recognition that differences in race, religion, economic status, and other personal characteristics may give rise to tensions, practices of discrimination, and acts of prejudice here in the city of Salem. We take our direction and our inspiration from Chapter 97 of the Salem Revised Codes, which states that it is the policy of the City of Salem to eliminate discrimination, and that the city intends that every individual shall have an equal opportunity to participate fully in the life of the city, and that discriminatory barriers to equal participation in employment, housing, and public accommodations shall be removed. In support of Chapter 97, Chapter 8 of the Salem Revised Codes sets forth the general powers and duties of this commission. Within that scope, we are always available to provide information, referrals, and conciliatory assistance to community members who have experienced or have concerns about discrimination in Salem. Likewise, we're also available as a resource to the City Council regarding specific incidents of discrimination in your wards or broader issues of discrimination affecting the city. As staff liaison, Ms. Bennett prepares a monthly and an annual report on the calls that we receive or that she receives regarding concerns or perceptions of discrimination in this city. In addition to these responsive and reporting services, the Commission creates an annual work plan to take initiative on specific objectives towards promoting human rights and eliminating discrimination in Salem. We have identified 4 priorities for this year. The first is to review the Salem Revised Code, Chapter 97, and better understand our duties regarding the receipt, resolution, and referral of complaints, and to educate our partners on those responsibilities. Our second priority is to create commissioner liaisons to target organizations in Salem that are associated with protected classes under Chapter 97. Our third priority is to review and provide comments on proposed changes to community transportation services, focusing on potential impacts to accessibility for Salem's low-income, elderly, and disabled populations. And finally, we have established as a priority to create new relationships and to expand our current linkages between the Hispanic and Latino community leaders and the Commission, and to determine a specific plan for learning about current issues of discrimination within this cultural community. You have a staff report and our current work plan included in your packets, and I appreciate the opportunity to speak to you today.
Thank you very much. Are there any questions from councilors? All right.
Thank you.
Appreciate your service on the commission, and also I'd like to ask you to extend to the other members of the commission how much we appreciate the time and the effort that they spend and devote to the city. It's a tremendous help. Thank you. Thank you very much. All right. I see no one else has signed up for public comment. Was there anyone here this evening that did want to sign up for public comment, that wanted to make public comment but hadn't been able to sign up? This is on an item that is on the agenda. All right, if you'd like to approach the podium, you have 3 minutes. At the end of 2 minutes, the amber light comes on. At the end of 3 minutes, the red light. Just state your name and address or your ward, please.
We did sign up.
You did sign up?
Public hearing?
I think it's not on the agenda, the item. Did you want to speak about the parking issue?
No.
Oh, okay.
Oh, yeah.
Yes. So that would be at the end of the
Wait a
meeting.
moment. This has to be an item that's on the agenda for this section of the meeting. Sorry. All right. That's it? Then we'll move to the consent calendar. And Councilor Nanke, do you have a motion for us?
I do. Thank you, Madam Mayor. I would move the consent calendar with the following poll, 3.2A by Councilor Anderson.
Second.
All right. There's a motion on the floor, and it's from Councilor Nanke and seconded by Councilor Benars to approve the consent calendar with item 3.2A being pulled by Councilor Anderson. Thank you. All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, say nay. Motion carries. Thank you. Okay. We'll now move to the public hearings, and would the recorder please introduce the first public hearing, 4A.
The City Council will now hold a public hearing for the purpose of considering adoption of Ordinance Bill 515, amending the Salem Revised Code, Chapter 70, creating a new Chapter 70A relating to the design and installation of streetlights and offsetting the cost of providing a streetlight system for the benefit of the public, as well as making other minor changes to the Utilities Code.
Good evening, Madam Mayor and members of
Good evening.
council.
Welcome.
Mark Bechtel, Parks and Transportation Services Manager for Salem Public Works. And the issue we bring before you tonight for public hearing is a proposal to establish a streetlight fee for the operations, maintenance, upgrade, and expansion of the city's streetlight system. In your, the record should consist at this point of a staff report in your packet, as well as a supplemental staff report. And with additions, there should be some additional email testimony and letters that have come in for the record. Staff's recommendation for you tonight is in two portions. First, that we hold a public hearing and advance to second reading for enactment Ordinance Bill 5-15, which establishes a new chapter in the Salem Revised Code, which is Chapter 70A. It amends the existing SRC Chapter 70, enabling the city to charge a streetlight fee. The ordinance also establishes it as a separate line item on the city's utility bill, and then creates a separate streetlight fund in the city budget. For a subsequent meeting, if the motion is made to do so, a fee resolution will be brought to the council that would then set a streetlight fee schedule, which is shown in Table 1 of your staff report. It would then also include an increase in the sewer rate assistance program that would increase that discount to $11.80 per month, and then would propose to implement the streetlight fee beginning July 1st, 2015. Just a little bit of the history of this proposal. Council, you've seen this before. We had a public hearing on July 8th of 2013. But really, we have been talking about streetlight funding since 2002. And Councilor Nanke, I think you would be the one that has the institutional memory back to that point. But starting with the streetscape utility fee, followed by the Save Our Streets Committee. And then throughout the years, we've been trying to find ways to fund streetlights independent of the state highway funds that fund street maintenance. In fall of 2012, the Council Finance Committee directed staff to come up with a streetlight proposal. We held council work sessions in February and May of 2013, embarked on a public outreach process that ultimately involved postcards going out to all of our city utility customers, as well as many presentations. A public hearing was held July 8th. What we learned from that public hearing and from the emails that we received and the letters was that we needed to focus on funding and improving streetlights and not worry so much about the street maintenance aspect of it, because it tended to confuse people about what the purpose of the fee was. And so you're going to find out we're going to focus very much on streetlights. There was concerns about transparency, that we not mingle streetlight fees, revenues with the street fund, and hence we are proposing a separate streetlight fee fund in the city budget. We also found out that people would be willing to support a fee, be more willing to support a fee if there was a program to install streetlights where they are missing and desired by property owners in those neighborhoods. And finally, we realized that discounts for low-income, elderly, and disabled would also be a desired addition to the program. So what the streetlight fee that we are proposing would do is generate approximately $1.8 million in revenue. It would provide a self-sustaining, independent funding source, independent of the street fund, providing that budget transparency. It would be dedicated for the operation, maintenance, upgrade, and expansion of the streetlight system. Our streetlight system costs about $1.4 million per year to operate, but there would also be funding to upgrade the city-owned streetlights to energy-saving, long-life LED lamps. We would be able to begin a program of gradually installing missing streetlights in neighborhoods where they're desired and by the property owners. It would provide a stable source of funding. The streetlight fee schedule that you see in your staff report in Table 1, we expect to provide enough revenue to last us 6 to 8 years without having to come back to council to raise the rates, assuming that electricity costs continue at the forecasted rate. And then finally, the $1.4 million in state highway funds that we currently use to fund streetlights would then be available to be redirected for street maintenance and other transportation services in the city. What has brought this to bear and made it imperative is that the street fund, the Transportation Services Fund, is limited in its resources, and it's limited because our allocation of state highway funds or gas taxes, those revenues have been relatively flat over the last several years. And what you see in the graph before you, the blue line, the blue bars are our state highway funds, and the gold portions of those bars is general fund support. And there was a time when we had more general fund support in the street fund, but because of the recession and the tight budget resources in the general fund, those funds have been limited and decreased over time to where now we are solely dependent on our allocation of state highway funds. A little bit about our streetlight system. Our streetlight system comprises about 10,500 streetlights, of which they are broken into 3 options or 3 ownerships. About a third of our streetlights are owned by Portland General Electric, one of the utilities that serves the city. A smaller portion by Salem Electric, and the remaining are owned by the city. Your option A streetlights are owned by the utility, and we pay the electricity and operation costs. Your option B streetlights are owned by the city, but we pay the utilities to operate those streetlights for us, so we pay the electricity costs and additional maintenance costs on those poles. Option C lights are those that are owned by the city and operated by the city. We just pay the electricity costs. Of note is Portland General Electric has already converted most, if not all, of their option A lights to LED streetlights, and I think many of you that live in Salem have noticed the change in your neighborhoods that are served by PGE lights. Converting the lamps to LED lights has a number of advantages. LED lamps last a projected 20+ years compared to 7 years for the traditional high-pressure sodium lamps. They use, depending on the wattage of that particular pole or fixture, they can save anywhere from 40 to 60% electricity costs. They emit an ambient light that is more natural. It's a whiter light and actually resembles more closely moonlight. Also, those fixtures can be more focused onto the street area and produce less ambient glare. The conversion cost for the city-owned street lights to LEDs is about $3 million and would take about 3 years to complete. When that would be completed, the city would see a savings of about $4.7 million over 15 years with a payback of that investment within 9. I'd also add that the new LED lamps are actually warranted. Their warranties last 10 years. So this is a technology that has evolved, it's matured, and it would be a great time for the city to look to use those types of lamps. We have a mixture of facilities, streetlight facilities in the city. Our poles are aging. They're a mixture of wood, steel, fiberglass, aluminum. Over time, they have to be replaced. Our luminaires and circuits need to be replaced over time. And we have been replacing about 3 or 4 a year, but over time we will need to replace many more as our system ages. And so a streetlight fee would help fund an end-of-life pole replacement program where we would start at about 10 poles per year, but as the system continues to age, we could then replace 60 to 70 poles per year. We've talked about streetlights that are missing. We estimate that in order to meet national lighting standards, we need about 1,760 lights in our residential neighborhoods, and about 800 streetlights in our commercial districts for just over 2,500 streetlights. That isn't to meet what we would consider perfect national lighting standards. The cost to do that would be about $6.4 million. And we feel the streetlight fee that at the amounts that we are proposing, we could install somewhere between 65 to 70 new streetlights per year. Not all neighborhoods necessarily want streetlights. Some neighborhoods may continue to want to have less light, but for those who want streetlights, we would propose to conduct an outreach process starting with our oldest neighborhoods without streetlights and working towards developing a program to get them installed for those who want them. A little bit here on an example of our neighborhoods, and it's actually clearer if you look at the screen up on this side of the council chamber. This is an example of a neighborhood in South Salem. Off to the north there is Kubler. Liberty Road is to your right, and left is Skyline. Crossler Middle School and Secor Park is down towards the lower right corner. This is just an example of an established neighborhood that has no streetlights. So you can see that area. This is an example of a neighborhood in West Salem that is also established neighborhood missing streetlights. And then I want to give you an example of a neighborhood that we consider to be underserved. And what you'll notice here is if you don't look at the arterial streets, this is in Northeast Salem. If you don't look at the arterials that are well lit, look into the neighborhoods, and you can see that we only have street lamps on the corners at the intersections, and there can be as many as 10 homes in between streetlights. So that would be an example of an underserved neighborhood by streetlights. To get into the specifics of the streetlight fee itself, the basis of the streetlight fee would be to impose a fee on the owner or tenant or agent or responsible party of an improved property. And the basis is that those who control improved properties benefit from streetlights throughout the city. So it's not just streetlights adjacent to that improved property, but the surrounding neighborhood, streets within the city, and it's not just for motorists, but also for crime prevention. There is a general benefit to all the citizens of this city for having streetlights. The streetlight fee is not a property tax. It is a fee or general purpose tax. A little bit about the methodology of how we looked at how to assess this fee. We looked at an annual revenue goal of about $1.8 million, and we decided how would we split that up between residential and non-residential customers. And if you look at street mileage, where are the street lights? They're on the streets. If you look by mileage based on the Salem Transportation System Plan street classifications, you see that about 78% of the streets are in residential and the other 22% non-residential. That's also corroborated by the fact that if you look at our stormwater customer classification database by land use type, customer type, you add those up, and they also add up to roughly 78% and 22%. So having those two independent sources of data led us to create a fee schedule that we proposed that would assess the streetlight fee based on different customer classifications that you would find in your city utility bill. And the lowest amount would be for a single family home, $2.80 per month. And then it is broken up into 3 categories for multifamily. For 4 units or less, $2.80 a month, and then it goes up from there. Your small commercial are properties that are essentially about the same size or equal to a single-family home. They would also pay $2.80 per month. And then other commercial, industrial, institutional properties would pay more. I would note that if you look at the number of customers, 42,400, under this fee schedule, 93% of all the customers would pay $2.80 per month because of the heavy weighting of single-family residential in the fee schedule. What does that do for us? That fee schedule creates enough revenue, about $1.7 to $1.8 million per year, that we can create a revenue stream to fund, maintain, expand, upgrade our streetlight system for, we believe, 6 to 8 years. And when you see the little dip here, that is during the 3-year period that we start relamping the street lights with LEDs. We see a reduction in costs, but then over time, our costs do increase as the end-of-life pole replacement takes effect, as we begin to see increases in electricity rates. So over time, our costs will increase, and at some point, we'll need to come back and look at an increase in the rates. If we see any savings in our debt service, if we see any savings in our installation of new street lights, If we see any savings whatsoever, that will extend the period of time that we need before we would have to come back to council. So this is not a proposal that we would come back to you right away. We would come back over a space of years. Councilor Tom Anderson asked that we prepare an alternative rate proposal based on his desire to see some additional equity in the multifamily housing customer classifications, and generally a larger assessment on non-residential customer classifications. And so what you see there are 4 multifamily customer classifications instead of the 3 that are proposed in the staff recommended fee schedule. Councilor Anderson can speak to that rate schedule at the time that he desires. In comparing those 2 fee schedules, the alternative fee schedule simply provides more revenue on an annual basis, and the idea would be if there's additional revenue, that money could then be used to install more missing streetlights at a faster rate than what is proposed with the fee recommended, the staff recommended fee schedule. One of the issues that came out of the public hearing was a concern for those who are low income or disabled heads of households. And what we are proposing is to expand the current sewer rate assistance program from $9 a month to $11.80 a month. And what that would do then is compensate for the streetlight fee for single family homes. This is really the only blending of any of the utility programs with the streetlight fee, and that simply your sewer bill would go down an additional $2.80 to compensate for the streetlight fee. Otherwise, everything else is completely separate. What this does is the streetlight fee does provide us a means to stabilize our street fund. The revenues that we bring in to operate streetlights then allow us to redirect $1.4 million per year to street maintenance activities and other transportation services. It is not a silver bullet that buys us years and years of revenue. We do find ourselves in a position of needing more revenue in the street fund within the last 2 years of the 5-year forecast. However, if we do not have some additional revenue into the street fund, we'll be looking at very severe cutbacks in an already limited street maintenance program beginning at the end of this upcoming fiscal year. So those are the realities of street maintenance funding without a street fee, and the fact that it does stabilize the street fund with a street fee, but it does not solve our problem for more than just a few years. In summary, the streetlight fee is a separate streetlight fee that creates a separate revenue source and a separate fund. It modernizes our streetlight system. It expands it into those neighborhoods that where they're missing but desired. It expands the discount program, and then also stabilizes our transportation fund. This time we would take public testimony and questions of staff.
And Mayor, if I could, the alternative schedule from one of the counselors is not part of the staff presentation that we're doing or what the public hearing is on. It was an alternative schedule.
Councilor Bennett.
Do we have any estimate on how much time was spent on the alternative proposal? That didn't come to council.
Mr. Bechtel, can you respond to that?
Actually, during ordinance first reading, Councilor Anderson did propose an alternative approach to the fee schedule. We did meet with Councilor Anderson, and we met with him and listened to some of his concerns and ideas, and we were able to very briefly put together an alternative rate schedule, but it was brought up during ordinance first reading.
I'd like to interject. That was brought up because he asked for some other figures, but this council never took a motion, never took a stand on whether we would allocate staff time. Now, the question to you was just, how much time did that take? Meeting with Mr. Anderson and preparing the schedule.
The meeting was approximately an hour, hour and a half, and it took us about 2 hours of additional staff time.
We have a council rule that if staff time is going to be more than an hour, it comes back to council for approval before that is done. Is that not correct?
Yes, we do.
All right, I just want to be clear that everybody understands that what is before this public hearing is the staff report that went through the first reading and the fee schedule that went through the first hearing, the first reading. I just want to be sure everybody's certain about that. Thank you. And we're not deliberating at this point because we still have to, of course, we want the public testimony first. Councillor Lewis, do you have a question about procedure, perhaps?
Yes, I didn't know if you were going to entertain questions of staff now, or did you want to have public testimony and
We
then
do that
questions?
after the public
Okay, fine.
testimony. All right. Yeah, we have some people signed up. Okay. Lee Boyds or Bodes, please help me if I mispronounce your name. I do want to be corrected. Followed by Bob Elliott. Welcome.
Boyden.
Boyden. Okay,
B-O-Y-D-E-N,
thank
yes.
you.
And my name is Lee Boyden. I live in 5212 Oahu Avenue Southeast in Salem. And I'm here representing the Evergreen Village Homeowners Association. Now, Evergreen Village is located in southeast Salem. It was initially established as a manufactured home park in 1999. In 2001, it was converted to a PUD with 125 individual lots that were purchased by individuals installing their homes. We have a mixture of manufactured home and stick-built homes within the community. The city has determined that this is a private park. And as such, we maintain the streets, we maintain the stormwater system, all the landscaping, and we pay for the streetlights. We have 36 streetlights that have all been converted by PGE to the LED system, and we pay that monthly $543.14. Now, since it's part of the city of Salem, I don't see that, since we are already paying for our own streetlights, I can't see that it is justified that we should be taxed or had an additional fee put onto our water bills. Because if the city wants to take over the payment of that $543 to PGE, I will gladly pay for the water fee. That's all I have to say. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Are there questions from councilors? Well, we appreciate you coming down. Thank you so much. Bob Elliott, followed by Ron Sturba.
Good evening, and thank you, Councilor, for all the work you do. And Linda, thank you for all the years of service you've done. If you got 34 days, who's counting, right?
Thank you.
Okay. For the new councilors is what I really came down to talk to. The old councilors that were here when I came down last time have already heard it. And so for the new councilors, my cause is I'm not against the new fee. Last time we were here, we called it a tax, and of course now it's not a property tax, but with the fee. But the real issue I have is the point I always keep coming back to is when I needed lights, I formed my own light district, and we paid for them ourselves, and we did it. And all I'm saying is all those dark spots you say is take out the part about the expansion of this fee and have those neighborhoods that want lights, let them form the same district I did. And I asked the staff, I believe, Ms. Dickey, I think you said something like, well, what did it cost you? And it was like $240 back in the 90s to have it done. So, yeah, somebody's got to pay the bill, I got it. But all these people that are out there that haven't done anything, let them form their own light district. Have them pay for the 5 lights or the 10 lights or these people did over here. Now, last time I was here, the sidewalks were involved. We pulled the sidewalks out, so we separated that issue. So I wasn't really too excited. I was going to give up. I'm getting 62, retired now. But I got home tonight and I opened up my mail. And guess what was in tonight's mail? I don't know why you guys timed this. The billing of your utility bill comes on city council nights. So water-based fee, wastewater-based fee, stormwater-based fee, franchise fee, backflow prevention fee, those are the ones that are mentioned. So what's going to happen now, I've already told you you're going to vote for this last time. It's going to pass. The railroad's running. It's going to go. We're going to do it. All I'm asking is you pull the expansion part out and have the staff, and I don't know if they did it, maybe the mayor or some people asked, did the staff look at any alternatives? That's a question I'd like to hear back. Or is it just the simple way of just saying, bill everybody and have us pay for it? So I don't know if I can get an answer tonight. If not, I'd like someone to contact me. My address is there. Did we look at the alternatives of having, we've done it in the past, because the gentlemen were sitting back here last time I said, they said, yeah, we've done that in the past. So for the new counselors, let's look outside the box and have those people pay for their part of developing this great city. Don't tax everybody as a whole. It's the easy way to do it. And if they can't afford it, maybe they don't want lights, like you said, so they can opt out of it. Now, why would anybody opt out of not having lights if they don't have to pay for it? Everybody else is going to pay for it. So all I'm asking for as the council is to pull the part out about the expansion. I know we had to pay for it. It's great. Have it work on roads. Are there any questions?
Are there questions from councilors?
Yes, sir.
Yes, Councilor McCoy.
How big is the district? How many households or lights?
We had 88 homes, and we have roughly, it was like 34 lights that we paid for, and it was really done. It was easy. We went to Salem Electric. I was the president. My wife was the secretary, and 2 neighbors were on the board. We formed it. We taxed ourselves $240. The liens went against their property if they didn't want to pay. We just paid ours outright, or you pay with interest. You pay monthly, and they were done very quickly. It was a private business like us. Put the lights up in no time. They had to order the fiberglass poles. They put them up. They maintain. You maintain them. The city does. They pay for the lights and stuff. But it's easy. And if the city would come up with a model, put it all together, just go out to the neighborhoods and have them do sign it. 66%, I think it was, can have to vote, agree to sign on the petition, and then they bill everybody.
Yes, Councilor McCoy.
So did you have collection issues?
I have no idea, because all it was is it's a lien against their home.
You just set it up, and then the utility does
takes
the
care of it,
billing and everything else after that?
Yeah. And I had some people that didn't want to sign up for it, and I had some empty lots, so I had to get 66%, and it wasn't a problem at all.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you for your time, and
All right.
I assume I'll see you back here when we have the hearing, and I'll make the pitch back again. I just think that people should pay their own way. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Roz Schrock, followed by Bob Wirtz.
Good evening, Madam Mayor and councilors. My name is Roz Sherrick. I live at 1645 Church Street Southeast, and I'm here tonight representing the South Central Association of Neighbors, SCAN. We heard a presentation from Mark Bechtel on the streetlight proposal in December, at our December meeting. We discussed it at our January meeting and again at our February 11th meeting, at which we adopted the position resolution which you have before you today. At that February meeting, there were 12 board members present. The resolution passed 11-0 with 1 abstention. I'll just summarize 3 points in the resolution that you do have. The first is, as you know, there's a highway funding package before the legislature. So we're suggesting that the City Council delay its decision or adoption of any streetlight fee until after it's known the outcome of that highway funding package and what the city's increased share might be if that package passes. So that's the first issue. Kind of wait and see if the city will will get additional money from that and how much. The second point is, if any increases from that package, if it passes, are not adequate to maintain city streets and to operate, maintain, and expand our streetlights, then SCAN does support the, in concept, the streetlight utility fee that's been proposed. However, our main point is we would like to see the cost allocation between residential and non-residential customers to be fair and based on an actual share of streetlights that are on residential versus non-residential streets. And as Mark showed in his presentation, there were a lot of dark areas you saw, particularly on the residential streets. And by just taking the miles of the various street categories, that is local, collector, arterial, parkway, by just taking the miles as a way to come up with the share between residential, non-residential, we do not think is a good proxy for the share of streetlights, because we know that on local streets there's a lot of blank areas, and also local streets don't need as frequent placement of streetlights as do the arterials. So it's likely that by using the miles of those various street categories, it overstates the residential share of streetlights, because there wouldn't be there's right now not as many streetlights on a given mile on local and collector streets as there are in the arterials. And on the map, on those streetlight placements on the map you showed, that Mark showed, you saw how fairly dense along arterials our existing streetlights are. So a better approach, we think, would be to look at actual streetlights, the incidence of streetlights on those various street categories to get at the allocation between residential and non-residential. And then the third point is we do support the staff's idea about increasing the sewer rate assistance program to provide that additional discount for the amount of any new fee, such as the increase from the $9 to the $11.80 a month. Thank you.
All right, are there questions from councilors? All right, thanks for coming down. We appreciate your testimony. I overlooked, I'm sorry, Ron Sturba was on the list. Mr. Sturba, did you want to testify? Sure. All right, please approach the podium. I didn't mean to overlook you there.
Madam Mayor, could I get the city's Mark Bechtel's first picture up there with the street lights? Yes.
That's a file photo.
Thank you. Good evening, Madam Mayor, council members, and city staff, and all guests here at City Council meeting. I live at 520th Street, Northeast Salem. My name's Ron Sturba, member of AARP, and I'm here to talk about support for this measure. And I recognize good lighting for us folks who are getting older. I don't know the aspects of the cones and the rods in our eyes. I do know one thing, that we have shifted away from safety in our lights here in Salem. And I want to talk about glare. If you look at these lights right here, you see every one of the light emitting items, whether it be a LED, a bulb, gas fixture. And what that is projecting a glare onto your windshield. And when we have that glare, it reflects off the raindrops of something we have a lot here in the Northwest. So we did have a safety lamp. It's called a full cutoff lighting. And that is you don't get to see the lamp. All we need is the light on the roadway and not in our eyes. Giving an example right here, full cutoff lighting. You go home, you have a light shade on your lamp. You don't look at the bulb. That's what we're going to in this city, and I want it to stop because there are better light fixtures out there than what PG went put in. Now, the street lamp that PG put in front of my house, 47 watts, half of what it was, 6 cents for 10 hours operation, and it took them 20 minutes to put that lamp in. Contractor from Washington, PG hired. So I'm here to say I'll support it but get the right light fixtures, get the right lighting in the city, and make it safe. I'm the only one here talking about safety. My concerns when I speak here at this council is always about safety. And I thank the other people who have done their homework on rate increases and the cost of lighting. So at this point, I want to say thank you very much. We need to look into better light fixtures for our neighborhood to make them safe. And when you know, you've seen it in the newspaper, we've had a rise in accidents. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And are there questions of Mr. Sturba? Yes, Councilor Nanki.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Thanks for coming down, Ron. I would have
you.
expected nothing less of our light man. So, question, I know you had concerns with the lamps PGE was changing out on the heads, and I'm trying to recall
Yes.
previous testimony, if you talk to our staff, if we're using the same kind of lights they are, and hence, in your opinion, they're not the right kind of lights.
Yeah, what they did in my neighborhood is they used a lamp for a roadway straight, but put them on a four-way intersection. So one street doesn't get light, the other street gets it. And you'll see them all over our area, and it's wrong. If you go to the East Salem Service District off Lancaster near Silverton, you will see that full ray of light down, and it has a shield, and it cuts that glare right out. So when you're going down the street, your eyes are not in competition with the glare. What they see is the light on the street. Now, if you go to Dark Sky International, you can learn a whole lot there. One thing that we don't need for our human eyes is to plunge into bright light and go into darkness. That's when our eyes don't readjust very quickly. And so therefore we need a more even light all the way through and less glare. And I'd be glad to work with the city on that.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Other questions? Yes, Councilor Benjamin.
Hey, thanks for coming down tonight. That's
Thank you.
important. That I know that glare gets me quite often in my neighborhood, and of course when it rains it's even worse. If you have a dusty windshield, it's bad as well. There's a lot of glare, and I have a feeling that your suggestion would help cut down potential accidents and maybe even fatalities by alleviating at least that portion, the glare. Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
All right. Thank you so much. Appreciate your testimony.
Thank you.
All right, back on the list, Bob
It's Bob Wordy.
Wadwordy?
It's Worty.
All right, thank you. Welcome.
Thank you. My name's Bob Wordy, and I live on Lidbeck Court Southeast. I was at a previous council meeting where I testified, several of them actually, and they brought up street lights before, and they were saying the neighborhoods that did not have street lights would have a reduced rate. I don't see that being projected into this at this time. Am I wrong there, that everybody's going to pay the same thing whether you got street lights or not?
Yeah, oh, yes.
Okay.
Mr.
Yes,
Fernandez, I think.
yes, it is one charge, and I apologize, Mr. Wordy. I do not recall ever presenting, me or my staff ever presenting a reduced rate for areas that did not have streetlights. There have been comments about the unfairness of having to pay for streetlights if you don't have them on your street, but the staff has never proposed anything but a fixed amount. The difference was whether we were going to charge a street maintenance fee or not. There was the $4 fee versus the $2.80 fee, but there's never been a proposal about reducing the rate if there isn't a street light on your street.
Well, in any event, what I'm looking at here is we're talking about funding that's coming in from the city for this, and I had my thoughts pretty well here, but bear with me a minute. It said that they hadn't been doing much maintenance of the roads for the last 2 years. Did we lose that much? Did the charts show that we lost that much money, that we need this additional amount? Is a question I would have there. And then the other thing is, like the other gentleman that testified before me, I got my bill today and I look at it regularly, and
here's a bill that's $77, and it's got $45 in fees on it. The city is using this as a main driver, more so than water that you have to have. They're using that for the driver. And I think we got to get to a point where we live within a budget. I do remember something, though, that was said about the reduced fee on that in the previous council, but it may have been, that's when that particular meeting was the one where they had the road and that. And we had enough people here that opposed it, that the city tabled that, and now we're back. So is this where we're coming in, is if we don't get it first, we keep bringing it back till we get it?
Well, actually, what we've brought that's in front of you now is a totally different recommendation than what was here, what was it, a year ago, year and a half ago.
But that was still the same concept. It was just the mixing of the money then. What we're looking at is you're adding a new fee and taking this money. Before they were talking about adding a fee that did both.
Okay, your time is up, but thank you for coming and for testifying. Are there questions by any councilors? Okay, thank you so much. Andrew Booth, followed by Judith Sullivan.
Mayor and City Council members, my name is Andrew Booth. I live at 1005 Capitol Street, Northeast. So the reason that we're here today to talk about this is to free up some money for street repair, as I understand it. And we initially were talking about the operation and maintenance of the streetlight program, and now we're talking about expanding that program. Somebody did speak about safety, but you know, I'll just point out to council, I haven't heard anybody here from the police department saying that better lighting is going to make our city safer. I don't know if you guys have seen that, if it was a part of the presentation that was given to you, but I certainly haven't seen that. I haven't heard that more lights in a particular neighborhood is going to reduce crime or reduce the number of traffic accidents at a particular intersection. I haven't seen any data to that effect. So the thing that really bothers me, though, and I think we need to get down to business and talk about this a little bit, is this commingling of fees with this so-called city utility bill. It's not a city utility bill. It's a water and sewer bill. That's what it is. And the city of Salem continues to use that as a mechanism to try to pass off other fees. It's completely arbitrary. There's no correlation between streetlights and me flushing my toilet or watering my lawn. None whatsoever. And if somebody can point that out to me, I'd like to understand it. I mean, what are you going to do next? Bill me to put trees in my front yard according to my sewer bill? I mean, how many residential properties are in this city that have wells and septic systems? Are they included in the numbers here? There's these other lighting districts out here. Why do we continue to utilize this city utility bill to try to push forward other fees? Call it what it is. It's a tax, and it should be passed as a tax. Or perhaps what we should do what the city of Portland did, right? If there's really a return on investment here in 9 years' time, why aren't we out there for a bond? Why aren't we out there issuing a bond and saying we're going to replace the lights and we're going to cut the rates by 40 to 60% per year, and in 9 years' time recoup all of our money? And I'll also point out in the city of Portland, if a neighborhood wants a new street light, they have to raise the money to make that street light a reality. $1,200 a street light. I'm sure you guys have done that research, but this is the fact of the matter. Stop trying to push these fees down our throats through the city utility bill, which is nothing more than the water bill. Any questions?
Councilors, are there any questions? Councilor Benjamin.
From what I understand, just to send out a separate bill for $2.80, just to initialize that process is like $150,000.
So what are the next things that we're going to tack on? Are you going to replace my sidewalks through the city bill? Or, I mean, are you going to plant trees? Are we going to have like a hot air balloon ride that's tied to my city sewer bill? I mean, what is it? I mean, either do what's right and separate it and create that agency to bill all people in the city of Salem, or find another way to fund it through a bond so that it is
Mr.
equally.
Booth, I'm going to have to ask you to curtail your testimony. You did get your 3 minutes, and this is the time.
I'm responding to the question, ma'am.
No, this is the time for counselors to ask questions, but not for you to continue your testimony. I think
If you don't want to listen to what I have to
question.
say, I had to say what I had to say, and
Thank
I'm
you.
done.
Thank you very much. All right. Judith Sullivan, followed by Tom Jenkins.
Yes, I'm Judith Sullivan. I'm in Ward 7. And I came today, I just happened to hear on the radio this morning that they were having this hearing tonight on the proposed lights again. It's kind of funny because the last time they did it, they sent out a notice to all the city residents that they were going to do it. And this year, there was no notice that this was coming up. I happened to talk to 4 of my neighbors today after I heard that on the radio, and every one of them is against this. If I had had time, I would have gone and talked to more of my neighbors, but there was no time. What I'm seeing here is more money, more money, more money. Once you put in a fee, the fee never goes away, it never goes down, it always goes up. I've seen this in the water and sewer bill time after time. My water and sewer goes up. It's not so much the water, as everybody has said, it's all the other fees on it. And it's just ridiculous. I've been here, this is my 3rd time here on this. I've said it before. When I first moved into my house 16 years ago, I was paying $36 a month for water and sewer. Now it's up to, every 2 months it was $36. Now it's up to almost $50 every month in my low water usage period. And it's out of hand. It's ridiculous. My suggestions are, if you need a light replaced, if the light is no longer functioning, then replace that light. But don't go out and replace it all throughout the city. I know this is not the dream of the city, but it works better for the residents. It says, they said that there was help for low-income people, but you have to be rock bottom, low income, to get any help. And that really isn't helpful to us. The help would be, and let's lower some of these fees and quit introducing more fees to us. I look at the water or the lights as like sidewalks. Part of my area has sidewalks, part doesn't. I wouldn't expect the city to bill everybody else to come in and put in sidewalks in that area. If people want lights in their area, then they should pay for lights. But you know what? Most of the people that don't have lights probably don't even want them. That's all I can think of to say. I'd like to say more, but I can't think of it right now. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Are there questions for Ms. Sullivan? Councilor Benars?
Judy, thank you for coming in. We meet face to face after a 15-minute phone call this afternoon
Thank you
to
for
talk about
calling.
this matter. I really appreciate you taking the time to come down to express yourself. It is so much more powerful, even so, than a written letter to come down. And I know it takes a lot of nerve to stand up in front of a group of people. So again, I appreciate, I just want to let you know that I'm hearing exactly what you're having to say, as well as other people who have given testimony.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Would it help if I went and got a petition on this?
Wouldn't hurt.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Tom Jenkins, followed by Dell Johnson.
Yeah, I'm Tom Jenkins. The only way I found out about this place is Salem, West Salem today, and in here, streetlight fee considered funds. There's no time, there's no address. It's like you're trying to hide it or something. And I thought, what is this? I got my own thoughts, and I wrote them down from what I read in this. And this is what I thought of. It says, it looks like a bait and switch. What you're really saying is the streets are bad and need a repair, and the gas tax is not enough to repair all the streets. But also, a small part of the gas tax is the street light maintenance tax of $1.4 million. If more money is needed to repair the streets, then raise the gas tax 1 or 2 pennies per gallon so everybody pays for the streets equally. You flipped it. Instead of raising the price of gas to cover the care of the streets, you want to push the tax onto the streetlight maintenance and add it to the water bill so you don't have to raise the gas tax. You said it yourself that the $1.4 million will cover the streetlight maintenance alone. You tell us you need $2.80 a month for everyone to take care of the lights, except industry and big business, which maybe might pay just $13.50 a month or lower. Now, $13.50 a month is not a big deal for a company that's making $100,000 or $1 million a year, but for a low-income family that makes $10 an hour, $7 a year, or $7 an hour after taxes, that is a big deal. The way I see it, when the government takes a buck here and a buck there from low-income family, that adds up to a lot of bucks. And those making the big bucks should pay their fair share. They use the roads and lights too. Seems like everything is dumped on the little people. That's what I think.
Thank you very much. Are there questions for Mr. Jenkins? Thank you for coming down. We appreciate your testimony. Dell Johnson, followed by Holly Sears.
Good afternoon. Good evening. I would like to
Welcome.
yell my time, please.
I'm sorry?
I would like to yell my time to someone else.
All right, that's fine. Thank you very much. Holly Sears, welcome.
Yes. Good evening, Madam Mayor and members of City Council. My name is Holly Sears, and I'm representing the over 700 members of the Salem Association of Realtors. Thank you for the opportunity to comment tonight on the proposed streetlight fee. My testimony will be brief, as we've also submitted written comments, but we thought it was important to come down here today and publicly voice our support for the establishment of a separate and distinct fund to pay for the operation, maintenance, improvement, and also expansion of streetlights in Salem. The creation of this fund will allow the city's current street maintenance and repair fund to actually go toward just that, the repair and maintenance of city streets, many of which are in badly need of repair. Additionally, it is our understanding that part of the funds raised for this new fee, will be set aside for the addition of streetlights in neighborhoods that currently do not have them. And adding lights in neighborhoods that don't have them improves the safety of those neighborhoods, and safe neighborhoods are, of course, essential to a vibrant and healthy community. So we urge an affirmative vote for this, and we thank you for your time this evening.
Thank you very much. We appreciate your testimony. Appreciate you coming down. Just a moment. Were there any questions from councilors? Oh, all right. Thanks very much. All right. Was there anyone else who did want to testify on this issue and didn't get a chance to get their name on the ballot? Yes, would you like to? Thank you. Come down and state your name and address or your ward, and you have 3 minutes. At the end of the first 2 minutes, the amber light comes on. At the end of 3 minutes, the red light.
Rebecca Roth, South Salem, and I'm down here tonight because last year I heard testimony that we had to put a huge amount of money into redoing our water systems, and you started a new water tax, and we were discussing at that time how that was going to be a difficult thing for people to bear, and yet we went ahead and did that. And the difficulty with all this is that the federal government is driving a lot of this with faulty science through the EPA, and they're forcing us to do things about spending our money for things that are frivolous. And I just want to say that the federal government is using faulty science, and it's not right for us to just sit around and not talk about this and expose what's going on at the federal level. And the whole remake of our water system used up a lot of money, and now we want to repair roads that really are in pretty good shape. And I don't see any reason why we have to spend more and more and more money all the time for things, except that the federal government is forcing us. And it's a lot of the bad science has been exposed, and then they just go right ahead and through their powers of forcing us, they go right ahead and make us do it, even though the science has been exposed as being fraudulent. Thank you.
Are there any questions from counselors? All right, thank you. Appreciate your testimony. All right, if there's no one else that
Mayor,
wanted...
I think there's one more person.
Oh, yes, thank you. If you'd like to come down to the podium, thank you. Welcome.
Hi, my name is Rosalind Jenkins, and I'm from Northeast Salem. And I have written down some of my thoughts. So if you'll bear with me, I might get a little bit of dry throat. Okay. The key thing is that the city is supposed to maintain the streets and streetlights with the funding that is received from the state, not to separate the funding which the taxpayer already funds, but Mark Bechtel wants the citizens of Salem to carry another burden by having to fund the streetlights. Salem has 10,500 streetlights, in which I had read in the article, and at a cost of $1.4 million a year to operate. 2/3 city-owned, but it's maintained by PGE and Salem Electric, and 1/3 utilities owned, maintained by PGE and Salem Electric. A small number owned and maintained by the city. Why not separate the funding you get from the state? This way you will know how much you need, then you can budget accordingly. Just as if any household should do when there is not enough income to cover things like food or medicine or heat, etc. Then you are asking for more money? Tighten your belt like the rest of the community does when there are hard times. Moreover, is this cost ongoing or is it at a one-time deal? Single-family residential units are set at $2.80 per month. And like everything, once it is in, it does not stop, maybe the next year $5. Right now, the city gets from the state a state funding of $1.4 million that the city uses for streetlights. But you are estimating collecting more, at least $1.76 million in revenue the first year. What will it be the 2, 3, 4 years from now? Moreover, if the money will operate 10,500 lights, I thought the city was supposed to own 2/3. Why are we paying for utilities, which is 1/3 owned by utilities, and we pay for those utilities on our utility bills? Then if the lights are upgraded from the standard 7 years used to the energy efficient LED lamps that are supposed to last 20 years, use 40 to 60% less energy, and last 3 times longer, shouldn't it be saving us money? Instead of asking for more money, if you already have $1.4 million to spend on the lights and to replace poles that are wooden and rotten out. As it is in 2012, about 3 years ago, the city stopped performing preventive maintenance on all city streets, and just last year, officials halted pavement overlays on local residential streets. Therefore, you have no need to ask for more money. You just stop working on the city streets, and now you have all the funds you need for the streetlights. And if PGE converted 25% of the city streetlights, which is what it was quoted in the article, that's 2,700 to LED, we should already be reaping the rewards from those lights to be able to replace some more street lamps in the meantime.
Thank you. Your time is up. Can you wrap up?
Yes. In addition, since the city has stopped performing preventive maintenance on all city streets and overlays, where was the money for that allocated? I thought the money was divided, and if not, what is going on?
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Questions by any counselors? Yes, Councilor Benjamin.
Did I hear you correctly in saying that we should stop maintaining the streets and that way we'll have the money to pay for the electric bill?
In the article that I read,
okay.
It had said that the streets were halted on the maintenance.
Right. So I thought I heard you say that if we continue to do that, then we'll be able to have our money for streetlights.
Right, because if you stop, the money has to come from somewhere. If you stop working on the streets and maintaining them, where's the money going to?
So if we stop maintaining the streets...
Well, that's what it has said in the article. You have already stopped maintaining.
Right. And if we continue to do so, what's that look like?
Well, what's going to look like is that the streets are going to get really messy.
Right,
And so why has it been halted?
because we don't have the money to do anything with them.
And where's the money coming from if the money has already been funded?
From the gas tax.
Right? Okay, where's the gas tax if there's not
Well,
enough
the projected
money?
levels that they thought would be enough to maintain this whole operation didn't turn out that way. Fewer people are driving, more fuel-efficient cars, which eventually will be electric. So then, at piece by piece, there's going to be less and less and less and less money. Now, we can stop maintaining the roads, but I just wanted to find out if that's what you said.
Oh, yes, that's what I said.
Stop
Because that's
maintaining the
what
roads.
the article was written about, that the city of Salem stopped maintaining.
We should stop maintaining them.
You did.
Right. Okay, thank you.
No, I don't think so. All right. Okay, thank you very much. Appreciate your testimony. Okay, there's no one else signed up to testify, and so we will proceed for questions of staff. Councillor Bennett.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I had just
Councillor Anderson.
Thank you. Just a couple of questions of either Mr. Bechtel or Mr. Fernandez. I thought one of the questions really interested me. There's several questions that were raised by the public testimony. How does this mix with our water and sewer billing? And I had another written comment that suggested that our water could be turned off if we fail to pay the streetlight fee. And I just want to kind of understand how that works.
Sure. Thank you, Councilor. It's unfortunate that that the term fee is kind of mixed in with our water bill. There are generally every water bill has 7 line items on it. So for water, for wastewater, and for stormwater, there is a consumption, and then there is a fixed fee. But I want to be clear with the council that all of that money goes to the utility. So there's a portion that is how much of the system you consume, and there's a portion that is fixed to manage the system, the fixed costs of managing the system, the pipes, the catch basins, the pump stations, et cetera. And then the 7th line item is the franchise fee. And council will recall that there was a request several years ago to stratify all the bill so that there would be a better understanding of what all of the money went for. Now, some of our customers also have backflow devices, and council a couple of years ago instituted a backflow fee to pay for, because not every customer has a backflow device, so that was a cost of service item. So all of those monies today, everything on the water sewer bill goes to the water sewer utility, period, nothing else. This fee would be an additional line item, and the way the bill is processed by our software is it pays the first, if you pay less than the total bill, it pays the water line item first, the water consumption, then the water fee, then the wastewater consumption, then the water fee, and so forth. So if every month a customer chose to not pay the streetlight fee, their water would not be shut off.
Okay.
They would simply be in arrears $2.80 a month. When they got to $25, so in other words, after about 10 months, then they would be in danger of either being shut off or being sent to collection, because at that point, they would owe us more than the amount needed. But you need to be at $25 or more before we take any action.
And then, if I may, how will light fixtures be chosen, as per Mr. Sturba's comments? Do you have a plan for how to choose light fixtures so we don't see that?
We do not yet have a plan because we don't have a fee yet. Council will recall that Mr. Sturba visited with you a number of times last year about his concern related to LED lights. I finally had the opportunity to visit with Mr. Sturba and really understand what his issue was, and it's the quality of the light that it's emitted by the light fixture. Mr. Sturba has done a tremendous amount of research, and I promised him that if the fee passed, that we would engage him to understand his research and to see. We can pick. PGE has picked a light fixture. We don't have to pick PGE's light fixture for our lights. We can pick whatever fixture we want. So we will want to understand his research and actually look at the kinds of fixtures that are out there to pick an appropriate one.
Thank you.
I believe Councillor Anderson, and then Councillor Lewis, and Councillor Benars.
Thank you. I have a question for Mr. Bechtel about the commercial units. And I note that you say there are 2,271 improved properties. Does that mean, let's say you're a strip mall and there are 4 businesses in the strip mall that rent from one owner of that strip mall? Is that 1 unit or 4 units?
It'll be by customer account, by stormwater customer account.
And so well, by stormwater customer account, is that 1 unit or 4 units?
It's going to depend on how many accounts that particular combination of sites has. So if 2 businesses are combining to pay 1 stormwater bill, then they would share that bill. If it's 1 per bill.
So theoretically, depending on the lease, if there was 4 units that were leasing from one landlord, that could be considered to be 1 unit?
It could.
Okay. And you don't know how that's broken down here?
I do not personally. Peter, do you have any?
It really depends. It depends on how the properties are. You use the example of shopping centers, which is the most difficult example because shopping centers have a number of land divisions within them. So we could have a situation like at Lancaster Mall where Macy's owns its own land and might have its own water bill, its own account, and then the rest of Lancaster might have a separate account. So in that case, there'd be more than one. There may be other small shopping centers that only get 1 water bill. So it really just depends.
Okay, so I'm not so much concerned with the bigger Lancaster Mall type. I'm concerned with, say, a place on 12th Avenue that there are 4. Okay, I'll give an example where Fitz is. Fitz on 12th. There's maybe 4 different businesses that are in a bigger unit, and I would guess that is really only treated as 1 unit.
I would guess, and it's really a guess because I don't have that information in front of me. I would guess that small shopping centers like that would be 1 stormwater account, and therefore they would receive just the 1 streetlight fee.
All right. Did that answer your question, Councillor Anderson? Okay. And then Councillor Lewis, followed by Councillor Benars.
I have 3 or 4 questions, but they're quick, I think, for Mr. Bechtel. One, and I'm trying to get an understanding of how long it would take to install the streetlights. I think you mentioned like 2,500 to 2,600 if they were all put in. Do you have a list of those areas that have requested them, or have you done that outreach yet?
We know there's about 2,500 just by looking at our own GIS mapping.
Right.
But we have not conducted the public outreach process to start to find out which neighborhoods want them and the priority in which they would occur. We used to have that information, but it's about 15 years old.
So I'm guessing just roughly it would take about 35 years to install them using your 70.
It could, depending upon the rate of revenue and how much money can be allocated to the installation of new streetlights, and if every neighborhood wants to have a uniform level of lighting.
In this time period that we're talking about tonight, 78 years, looks like you could maybe install up to maybe 500 though, which would be about 1/5 of that 2,500.
That's correct, yeah.
Okay. Are you replacing, as lights go out now, are you replacing them with LED lights?
Salem Electric is doing that as part of their lights that they own. PGE has requested that we not do that. We have to do it by circuit. And so what they are requesting of us is that once we embark on replacing those lights with LEDs, we only take 3 years to do that because they want them replaced by circuit. And one of the reasons why is that the tariff that we pay is based on high pressure sodium, so there's no benefit to us. Each pole doesn't have its own meter, so the tariff is based on a bulk amount of poles. And if we replace them individually, we're not gaining any benefit because we're being charged the high pressure sodium rate. So that's why they want us to do them in bulk numbers by circuit so that we can pay the proper rate on our bill.
Which is something you can or can't do now. I guess you could do that now. Okay. Assuming, or if this were to pass, would city staff install the new poles, or would that be done by outside contractors?
All the installation would be by outside contractors.
Okay. And then this question may be for Mr. Fernandez. I don't know if I want to admit this, but I read some of the blogs in town, and I read recently
The city is currently shutting off around 200 homes a month. Is that correct?
I really couldn't say, Councilor Lewis. We have of the 52,000 accounts, there are about, and that's both inside the city and outside the city in areas that we service, there are about 400 accounts that are recurring issues. So I couldn't tell you exactly the number, but 200 is probably about right. And these may be that they get shut off and they pay the very next day, or there are a number of customers that pay on the door hanger. So when we put the door hanger on, it says we're going to shut you off. That's when they come and they pay the bill. So there's, like I said, about 400 a month on average that are problem accounts.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
All right. Councilor Benars?
I just want to have a few questions, if I may. The first one is more of a statement than, I have gone paperless in the billing system, so it affords me the ability to actually take a look at the bill that I get at my home. There are actually not 7 line items on the bill, but there are actually 8, at least on my bill there is. I see room for maybe one more, and that's about it, at least on this pre-printed form that it comes out to me. I wanted to ask, what about, I have a friend in West Salem who pays for a street light. I don't know what he pays per month, but he pays for a street light in front of his home. It's a nice neighborhood, but nobody else wanted to pay for it, so he pays for it. When you go through and you put in the light, he no longer will have to pay for that street light?
Yeah, those are rental lights, and Councilor, you bring up a very good point. If you live in a neighborhood where there are no street lights and you wish to have one, you can make a private business arrangement, a private contract with Portland General Electric or Salem Electric, and they will come out and install a pole on the street, and you pay a portion of the installation, and you pay the electric bill for that. That is a private arrangement you have with the utility. What we would do with the passage of the streetlight fee is that for those people that have those rental lights in the public street right-of-way, and many of them are actually on private property, but those that are in the private street right-of-way, they could come to us and say, would you please take over the ownership of this light? If the utility agrees to that, then we would take over the ownership of that light and then pay the electric bill from that point on. But that's an agreement that they have to themselves dissolve that agreement with the utility and then bring it to us.
Okay, so it's
right. So we've had that conversation. I'm glad you asked that,
Yeah.
Councilor. And the one gentleman spoke about his subdivision, that in essence has that rental situation. If the streetlight fee passes, we will open up dialogue with Portland General Electric and Salem Electric to see their interest. Like Mark says, these are private contracts between the utility and the property owner. But assuming that both parties want to relinquish that, we feel it would be appropriate that we would take over the payment of those lights on the public right-of-way, not on private property.
Okay. Mark, is it possible that you could go to the 77% as you allocated? It was part of the presentation. My question is when you look at the 77% versus the residual 22%, yes, was that based on street length or square footage of lot?
That's based on mileage of street by classification, and it's very basic assumption, and that is that most of your residential streets are local streets in classification, portion of your collector streets are residential. Most of your commercial businesses are located on arterial streets and our parkways, so it's a very basic allocation. And to back that up, we then went to the stormwater database and looked at the customer classifications themselves to see how that allocated out, and it also allocated out to roughly 78 and 22%. So we compared 2 different surrogate databases to see how we could justify an allocation between the 2.
So, and did you look at it by square footage at all, or was that not part of the?
We didn't, although I have percentages by acreage based on residential and non-residential. If you wanted to look at a system based on just raw acreage, I have those percentages.
Just a curiosity on that side. The last thing I wanted to talk about, and I'm not sure who to direct this to, but it has to do with, there's a 2-part thing that we're talking about here. If we do the streetlight fee, we'll have money for street maintenance because we'll have freed up an income stream. so that we can, is there anything in the proposal that staff has come forward that binds us to dedicating X number of dollars or a percent X number of dollars this year plus a % increase per year in your recommendation?
Well, I mean, we're running a deficit right now in the street fund. And so any relief we get from other expenditures like streetlights, we would plow right back into the street fund and into those expenditures. We would put that into street maintenance. That's what's needing the most. But all the system has to be provided for. Our traffic signals have to be kept on and maintained. We have to plow snow in the wintertime and the winters that we get snow. There's a number of things that we have to pay for. Street tree maintenance and right-of-way mowing. All those services require funding. So that money goes back into the street fund. It gets allocated on a must-need basis, and we believe we can increase the level of street maintenance because we have a redirected funding source. But over time, like any funding source, there'll be limitations.
So what you're driving to my point was basically it's a matter of policy rather than a matter of dollar for dollar. What we save is going to go back over. Somewhere along the way, someone's going to have to say, as you said, 5 to 8 years from now, and there's not enough money coming in to serve it, it's going to be a policy that we're going to have to start cutting back the services, or we increase this fee, one or the other. So it's a policy issue rather than a dollar for dollar.
Councilor, in terms of, Mark, could you bring up the model?
Yeah.
The blue and,
Yeah.
So as we've run the model, the financial model, and we've run it out for many years, what we see is that the fee that we're proposing, understanding the cost, making some assumption over the cost, we don't think that we need to come back with a rate proposal for 6 to 8 years. The very reason that we recommend that it be its own fund is precisely so that we can track it carefully and come back to a future council with a rate proposal where you can see, in fact, you'll see from year to year what the expenses in the budget process, what the revenues are projected, what the expenses, and then the history of that. And as we start getting closer to, we're gonna relamp because that's why we're generating more revenue.
Getting closer to compression, by the way.
So we're going to relamp. So we're going to take on that debt and stuff. At the end, we will engage council with, hey, we're getting close. Do you want to cut back on pole replacements so that we can go out an extra year? I mean, there'll be some opportunities to do some saving and push out a possible rate increase, or talk to council about, hey, for another nickel, we can do an extra 100, I mean, I'm making numbers up. For an extra nickel a month, we can do an extra 100 poles, and we can go another X number of years. So those are the kinds of discussions that we would plan to have in 21, 22, and 22, 23, as we start to get, as that blue line starts to get closer to the red line.
Madam Mayor, I have just one more question, if I may. So there are now 8 lines on this. We're going to add a 9th. Who says we don't go back and do the street? I mean, this is going to come back to City Council if we do a street maintenance fee, or if we do a sidewalk fee, or policy. It's all going to be policy here in this room.
Mm-hmm. It's all policy in this room. Yeah, the number of lines is computing. I mean, that's just, we can have as many lines as we want. We just have to redesign.
That's what scares me.
redesign the bill. So you have to remember, Councilor, the council wanted to, there was a lot of discussion before the council several years ago about customers really wanting to understand what the utility bill was about. So that's why it used to be that we only had 2 lines. There was a water line and a sewer line, and we put all that out so that people could really understand where the pieces of the bill go. More transparency means more lines on the bill. Your extra line is because you have a backflow device. Some people, I don't, so I only have 7 lines, not 8. But yeah, there's room. In fact, my customer service staff has told me, there's this one, and there may or may not be room for one more line, and then computing becomes a real problem.
Thank you.
Councilor, let's see. Councilor Dickey, followed by Councilor McCoy, followed by Councilor Bennett.
Thank you. I just have a couple questions relating to a lighting district or something like that. I just want to make sure I understand how that works. So the gentleman from Evergreen Village came, would that be a lighting district that he's talking about? And is that the kind of agreement that they would work out with their provider and then potentially come to the city to take over the lighting there?
Sure, there's two ways they can do that. One is if they're private streets or a mobile home park or a very large apartment complex, they can have their own privately run streetlight system. And as the landlord, they can allocate those costs however they wish. Or if they have a private street system in a residential neighborhood, those costs can be allocated amongst the homeowners by a homeowners association. In the case of just a regular Salem neighborhood that has public streets with public street lights, there has always been a method available to Salem residents to have streetlights installed by forming their own local improvement district. And so, and the gentleman actually described it very accurately, and that is, you put out an outreach effort to find out who wants streetlights, and if a majority of the property owners want to have them, and you go through that process. Council approves the local improvement district and assesses an allocation of that cost to each property owner within that service area. You can then have streetlights installed. Then the city would pick up the billing of the electricity and maintenance of those streetlights from that point on. I'm not aware, Peter, correct me if I'm wrong, I'm not aware that we have actually had a streetlight district formed in the city in probably 15 years.
Yeah, we had a bunch of them when I first got here 20 years ago, and I think for about the last 15 years, I think it was done by subdivision, by subdivision plat, and I think pretty much anyone that wanted them at this point has them. Anyone that really wanted to go through and have them assessed had them. Because we haven't even had an inquiry in years.
Yes. Thank you. So would you have any idea like how much that would cost? You know, I don't even know if there's an average size for one of these districts. What I'm trying to figure out is how would that weigh against like a neighborhood going together and forming one of those districts versus $2.80 a month. I'm trying to understand that. There was testimony tonight about, well, maybe neighborhoods just don't have the lights because they don't want them. And I'm wondering if there's an affordability factor here that maybe $2.80 a month is less than what they pay for their utility district. Do you have any idea about that?
If I might, I'd like to call down Kevin Hotman, because Kevin is our city traffic engineer, and he actually works with the different kinds of fixtures. And there's a range, Counselor, of fixtures that just go on existing poles, as well as poles that have to be put into the ground and circuitry. So Kevin's really good at that.
Good evening, Madam Mayor and Councilors. My name is Kevin Hotman. I'm the city traffic engineer. To install just an arm with a light fixture on a PGE power pole is about $600. To install a fiberglass pole and arm and the whole fixture is about $1,700. So that's kind of the two options. If there are existing poles within a neighborhood, then we would obviously do the cheaper option for the neighborhood.
Yes, go ahead.
So do you have any idea about like cost to a homeowner for something like that, either to retrofit or to put new one? I mostly hear from people who don't have any street lights, so I'm assuming my neighborhoods would want, from the ground up.
Well, right now we get requests generally for just single lights in a certain area. Somebody has an issue near their house and we install that. So we would help them put together that cost. I'm trying to think of, can you repeat the question?
Yeah, Counselor, it really just depends on how big the subdivision plat is. So, and it's really hard to say because they really vary. The gentleman that was testifying had 88 homes. So then, it just depended then on how big how long the streets are and, what the lighting was. You always obviously wanted at intersections and then typically in the middle of the block. They ran, You know, sir, you said $250, $300 is what you paid?
In 1989.
So, I mean, I think that's you know, if you kind of do the inflation math a little bit, that's about what you'd be looking at. And those were formed as local improvement districts. So that was assessed, and then they could either pay it off, or the city would assess them at 9.5% interest, because that's what the local improvement district assessment runs at. So $300, $400, $500. I mean, it really would depend, versus, you know, $280 a month, you know, $36 a year.
And then, Councilor, I would just point out here on the example that we had up here, this neighborhood does not have existing overhead power poles. All their utilities were undergrounded in this neighborhood. For some strange reason, it was in a very short window of time where they were required to underground their utilities, but did not have to install streetlights. And so this is a very expensive option, this particular neighborhood, because they would have to put in the underground utilities and then install the poles. So now you're looking at $2,500, $3,500 a pole with all of that work, replacing the landscaping that we'd have to disturb and all that. Whereas opposed to this neighborhood, these are overhead power lines, and with existing power poles, you might only have to install that luminaire that Kevin talked about, that $600 luminaire. And so it really does vary by the area you want to serve and the type of work we have to do.
Thank you. Okay, Councilor McCoy, followed by Councilor Bennett, and then Councilor Anderson.
Couple things. Some questions were asked by people that testified that I thought sort of interesting, and being the new guy here, I don't know the answer to. And one was, and I think it would help everybody in the room if they got answered by the staff, somebody asked, okay, you've got, I don't know how much money, I remember the graph and it was going up and down. The money that's left from the gas tax, where's it going to? What are you spending it on?
Sure, well, there is no extra money.
I didn't say extra, the money that is there.
So the money is spent, well, Mark, why don't you take it? I mean, Councilor, I think you're asking, how do we spend our gas tax money?
Yes.
Okay.
Which was, somebody asked that.
Yeah, Mr. Bechtel can.
Yeah, we get about $8.9 million of gas tax money a year. Off the top of that, we have to pay for our traffic signal system because they have to be on all the time. They have to always operate. You throw in the street lights with that, which come on every night. That's over $3 million between traffic signals and the street lights. About another $1.4 million for right-of-way mowing and landscape maintenance in the right-of-way, street tree repairs and maintenance. After that, you're looking at about $700,000 a year in sidewalk repair that we do. Now, some of that at the moment is being augmented with some bond money, but the sidewalk program costs about $700 a year. We have traffic engineering staff and ultimately...
$700,000, Mark, not $700.
I'm sorry, what?
$700,000.
What did I say?
$700.
Oh, $700,000, I'm sorry. $700,000. Ultimately, very last on the list, by the time you get done, all of the different expenditures that we have to make is basic street maintenance. So that's just because by the time we get done all the other mandated things, we're down to our discretionary spending, which is the amount of maintenance we can do. And just to give you an idea of how that kind of works, this is a history of our street maintenance by lane miles. The blue is, I believe, is overlays, and the red is skin patches or thin patching on arterials. And you can see the amount of work that we do is corresponding to the amount of revenue we get. When we used to get a portion of the water sewer franchise fees, we were able to do quite a bit of street maintenance. When we were able to get a little bit of a surge in the gas tax back at around 2009, we started getting some more gas tax money, 2010, 2011. We were able to do more pavement maintenance. As costs increase, as our revenues become flat, as the general fund support has decreased, so has our ability to do street maintenance. So the lane miles just decrease. Next year's, in 15-16, it'll be about the same as 14-15.
Thank you. Other testimony came in, a written testimony, and it struck me that it's something to consider if we're going to go down this road. And that was some fund for those who can't afford to pay their water fees. They cited Portland had a 1% of the fee went to help those folks who just can't afford it, and Eugene was a 0.5% or something like that. Is that something that has been discussed before and considered or not? Because I think it should be.
Yes, it have, Counselor. In fact, we've discussed it the last 2 or 3 rate proposals. We have had discussions at the Water Wastewater Task Force, and the recommendation has been to not go down that path, but to continue the donation program. This last time, there were a number of suggestions about how to improve the donation program to see if we could increase the donations that come into the program. But the recommendations the last 2 or 3 rate cycles has been to not go down the path of setting aside money or setting aside a percentage of the rate monies for low-income customers.
And finally, it's a comment, I guess. I have an issue with the proposal with the multifamily fees. Yeah, I know you're going by a meter, but when you've got a multifamily project with 60 or 70 or 80 or 90 households living in it, and they end up paying 60 or 70 cents a household versus the single-family folks that are paying $2.80, it just seems like that's fundamentally inequitable, and I'm not sure how to go about fixing that, but I know paying 25% of what a single-family homeowner is paying, just to me, I'm having trouble reconciling that into a fairness issue. Sure. If you're all reusing the roads and it's the family driving the roads and the theory you used, I can understand your theory, then they ought to be paying somewhere near what a single-family homeowner is paying and not going on a free ride at 70, 75 cents a piece.
As the council starts to deliberate, that is certainly the opportunity to address the line items. I think Councilor Anderson's proposal is one option of stratifying that multifamily some more, and that can be stratified. I mean, at some point it becomes, we got to do the computing. So at some point, I wouldn't recommend to council that it be stratified 10 times over. But if you want to do another stratification or 2 stratifications, then that's certainly an opportunity to do as part of the deliberation process.
One more comment.
One more, all right.
Quickly. I just did it sitting there on Sunday afternoon, obviously with nothing to do on a Sunday afternoon, so I was calculating things, and I did the addition of the number of units in the multifamily. It's 17,802 units versus 32,000 units or single-family units. So it's not a little number. It's a big number, not getting charged probably what they ought to be charged.
Okay, Councilor Bennett, followed by Councilor Anderson. Oh, you're done. Okay, Councilor Anderson, followed by Councilor Nanke.
Thank you. Mr. Bechtel, when you and Mr. Fernandez were discussing this with Councilor McCoy and me, I think at that point you did indicate that you had done the acreage study and you actually had some figures. Yeah. And I don't remember what they were. If you could let us know what the acreage figures were.
Just 1 second, please. If you look at the acreage in the city by zoning type, residential land is roughly 53% of the total acreage, and non-residential land is roughly 47% of the total acreage.
Okay. Thank you. And then, did you look at the actual number of streetlights and see where they may be on the residential streets, collector streets, arterial streets, parkways?
No, Councilor, we did not do an exact count.
Thank you.
Councilor Nanke, followed by Councilor Benars.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. A couple questions here, if I might. PGE, they maintain our current lights, and do they charge what we pay them? Do they charge as revenue, which then generates a franchise fees to where homeowners are paying for them to maintain our lights?
They are not.
So they're not considering that as revenue?
We pay a tariff. It's regulated by the Public Utility Commission. That is a tariff that is charged to the city. That is not charged to their customers.
I just didn't know if they counted it as revenue, which then they would be charged a franchise fee on, which then would go on our individual bills as well.
I don't know I mean, I don't know how they slice that pie, but what I can tell you is that there is no streetlight component to their rate on the.
No, it would
you
just
know,
be a
to-
matter
to
of
their-
whether or not they consider it revenue, because
Yeah,
that's how
I-
the franchise fees are based off of.
I don't know the answer to that.
No, that's all subject to the PUC and how they calculate gross revenue, and I can't tell you the formula offhand. I'm sorry.
Not a problem. We can find the answer. Have we looked at actually going out for a geo bond to change? It's all capital, correct?
Well, only the relamping component.
And new poles.
Yes, and the new poles. So that could be part of a general obligation bond, but not the maintenance and
Correct.
and electric part, the electric bill.
And that kind of begs my second question. Why are we looking to expand when we can't afford what we have now?
Well, a lot of the comments back in 2013, the council received about 250 emails, and about a third of the emails said that the citizens would be supportive if they had a street light. So that was part of the rework of what's being proposed is, okay, if that's the case, that makes sense. We will create, as a part of this program, the ability to install streetlights with the revenue that we get. As you see from Mark's numbers, it's really a very small program. So there was some testimony about perhaps not making that a part of the program. I don't think we would be recommending reducing the amount because it's so small that we would just run the ability to not have to increase the rate would just run a lot longer.
Another, if I may?
And I think that Councilor Benars is after you. But
Right.
Go ahead.
Let me run here. Could we purchase the streetlights that PGE owns?
We could. At this point, they are not for sale. So if they were for sale, we would offer to purchase them.
Do we know the difference in cost to us, essentially, for them owning?
It's the
that portion?
tariffs.
It's the tariff.
So can you bring up the tariffs again, Mark?
Actually, do you want to bring David Lacey up?
Do you know the answer to that?
Yeah.
Because I know we've seen this in, as it moved through Finance Committee as well, and on some of them, but
about 12 years ago or so, we actually did a study of what it would cost to purchase the streetlights. At that time, it was about $1.2 million. PGE was interested in selling at the time. We did not have the funds to acquire them. They were part of any number of studies that we had done. But as we sit here today, PGE has informed us that they are not willing to sell their streetlights.
Yeah, and David Lacey from Administrative Services, and I was trying to figure out if I had the cost printed or I can pull it up on the laptop real quick, but the difference between the option A PG lights is essentially what we're paying for that is we're paying a fixture charge, which if I remember correct, it's about $3 or so a month. There's the maintenance cost, which is a little bit higher, which is about 19 cents, I think, on the new LED. And then there's the energy tariffs, as well as a pole replacement charge, which based on the type of pole could be anywhere from about $5 to, I think, $11, whether it's aluminum or wood. So that price is a lot higher. What we're talking about with switching these to option C, we would be paying the energy tariff alone at that point, which would be the lower cost. So the difference between going to that option is that with the sale, when we were first originally talking about PGE converting those option A lights, the reason it worked out to be financially viable, or was about $60,000 to $90,000 in savings, is because we were already paying all those tariffs within those lights. So when they converted them to LED, the energy savings were offsetting the increased fixture charge that they had over the high pressure sodium. So.
Okay.
All right.
And
Yes.
Councilor Benars could go, and then I can look through the rest of this list
All
and
right.
figure out, because I know there's at least a couple more here.
Thank you, Councilor Nagy. So the first one I want to talk about, I want to come back to an issue we were talking about a few minutes ago in reference to large shopping malls. I'm going to go the other direction. I have a little small strip mall. It's got 3 tenants. Each tenant has its own water meter. Is that property listed as 1, or is it listed as 3? If each tenant is paying their own water?
Again, it's going to depend on whether they pay a stormwater fee or not.
Who is paying the stormwater?
Whoever has the water meter, I would imagine.
Not necessarily. We have customers that have multiple meters, but there's only one stormwater account. And it's whoever is paying, if you look at that shopping site, those 3 bills, if all 3 bills have a stormwater fee, all 3 will receive a streetlight fee. If only one of the 3 has a stormwater bill, then that's the one that's going to pay the streetlight fee.
So the one is paying the stormwater, if it is a single, is paying it for everybody else basically at that site.
Correct.
Or potentially we could have 3 go in at this point.
Correct.
And this would also be the same way that we would base this fee, whatever, $2.80 for residential or small commercial, would be based on that same kind of thing. If it was just one, it would be one streetlight fee. If it was 3 different stormwater fees, it would be 3 different streetlight fees.
Right. Now, of course, single family only gets, as far as we know, single family homes only have 1 meter. So yeah, they'd get their $2.80.
Unless they have their irrigation.
We're not charging the irrigation meter wouldn't have a stormwater fee associated with it.
Okay. The other question I have is probably really kind of scratching my head on this one. We've talked a lot about multifamily, but we actually have, what do we have, 6 other categories here of classifications: the small commercial, commercial, industrial, institutional, public, and irrigation. Can you address what's considered small commercial? What's considered commercial versus small commercial and industrial?
Sure. The small commercial is essentially businesses that are run out of single-family homes or buildings that are essentially the same size. It's an equivalent dwelling unit, or EDU, which you may remember from the stormwater ordinance. So it's about 3,000 square feet of impervious surface or less. So that's what qualifies a small commercial as the same rate as a single-family residential.
Okay. And the commercial then would be everything else?
Everything else, yes.
Okay. Industrial is just those zoned?
It's industrial are those that have a separate treatment agreement with the city. So those are your larger industrial.
Yeah, and this is not, Councilor, this is not by zoning, this is by customer classification in the utility. So industrial is really our 12 regulated industrial customers. That's why you see there's only 12 of them.
Yeah, not very many.
And then institutional, I believe, are the prisons.
That's correct.
And then public are the state office buildings and the schools.
So the institutional, if it's the prisons, and we have hundreds of people in the institution, again, we're down to pennies per
yeah,
cell,
except they're not driving too much.
Somebody has to get to the institution, though. Somebody has to get out. I mean, that's the logic that's been used on,
The guards do have to get there, yes.
Yeah, well, and we talked about these stormwater. I don't have stormwater in my neighborhood, yet I have to pay the fee. And you're saying, well, that's because you had to go through streets that did have stormwater to get to your home, to get, where it doesn't have stormwater. That was the argument back then. It's the same thing with the streetlights. You've got to go through these areas to get to it. So it does sound funny, but it does have some logic to it. Thank you. That's all I had.
Okay, are there any other questions from councilors? Councilor Nanke, and then Councilor Lewis.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. A couple of folks said they didn't hear about this until they saw something in the paper. What was our public notice process for this public hearing?
Yeah, so we did attend several neighbor associations. We made sure there was a front page article in the paper that spoke to it. We put it on the website. We did not send out 39,000 postcards like we did a year and a half ago. All of that testimony is certainly available to the council. It's on the July 8th, 13th?
July 8th,
July 8th, 2013. There's, all of that is attached there. If you go to council agendas, July 8th, 2013. So we didn't do the extensive. It was noticed, it was advertised, but it was not 39,000 postcards again.
And then last one for me. The increase in the solid waste franchise fee, $400,000 was going to go towards street maintenance. Has it been allocated for that, or is that in the upcoming budget?
It's in the recommended budget that we would use that for street
So the
maintenance.
numbers that we're seeing here don't include anything having to do with that $400,000? No,
Mark,
but
do you want to
meaning-
address that?
Yeah, Councilor, if you see here Schedule C in the 5-year forecast, This particular revenue and expenditure schedule includes a streetlight fee, giving us the ability to redirect funds within the street fund. It also includes the $400,000 in the additional garbage hauler or solid waste franchise fee.
For next year.
For next year. For just 1 year. Yeah, thank you. Yeah. So it would be
1 year, not subsequent?
Well, that's a council policy decision, so
didn't
it's
know how.
in next year's recommended budget at 400,000. So after that, as we talked about in the 5-year forecast, is a hole in the general fund or is a hole in street maintenance, and that's a policy discussion for council to have.
Correct.
All right, Councillor Lewis, I believe, has a question.
Yeah, Mark, if I could, so we're working with $8.9 million in gas tax, and the streetlights represent 1.4 million of that, which leaves 7.5 million. I know it's not exact, and I know it's used for other things other than street repair, but what is left for street repair out of that?
Yeah, about 1.5 million.
So if this street light fee were instituted, it would in essence currently double the amount of money available for street maintenance?
Well, it would, if it all were able to go to street maintenance, yes. There's a number of holes in our budget, but yes, it would for a short period of time, it could all go to street maintenance. Yeah.
Okay, let's talk about starting July 1st, 2015 for 1 year. Is not the $1.4 million earmarked for street maintenance?
No, because we're running a deficit, Counselor. We're running a deficit in all of our expenditure areas. Our costs are increasing. Our personnel costs, our healthcare PERS, all of our general costs, our materials costs are increasing. So that gets eaten up by, the money gets eaten up by costs. I'd also add too that if you look out into the next year, we no longer have bond money available to us for the sidewalk repair program. We have money this year and in 15-16. Then the money runs out, and then we would have to backfill that program with either gas tax money or money that's, it would be gas tax money because whether it's redirected from the streetlights or on its own, it's gas tax money. So that's a $500,000 hole that we would have to fill right there with gas tax money, just when the bond money runs out on sidewalk repair.
Or
you can make a policy decision to curtail sidewalk repair. That's an option.
Okay, are there any further questions of staff? Yes, Councillor, do you have a question of staff?
Yes.
All right.
In regards
Councillor
to testimony from Scan earlier in legislature dealing, do we have any idea what?
We don't.
And what kind of money?
There are proposals. Our understanding is that the proposals are all about capital, not about maintenance. So we don't have a lot of faith that we're going to have maintenance dollars coming in. But as Mark says, even if we get some small increase, we're so behind in maintenance that, it'd be great. It'd be great to come back to council like we used to do and debate what streets we're going to repave. We haven't done that in a very, very long time because there is no repaving going on.
All right.
All right. Are there any further questions of staff? All right. At this point, we're going to close the hearing, and then I'll entertain a motion. But I do want to take a moment to remind people in the audience that we do not allow, nor do we encourage any comments from people in the audience. So please refrain from that as we are deliberating. And if that continues, anyone doing so will, will be asked to leave the chambers. Thank you very much. All right, Councillor Danke, do you have a motion?
Not necessarily,
Yes.
but I'll put one out and see. Well, there's a lot of information.
There is a recommendation on the
There is,
agenda,
and-
so I'm asking if you want to bring that. Is that your motion?
And I would for current, not to say substitute won't come out of my mouth even as we enter into more discussions on it. So with yes, I would move staff recommendation to start, which would move it to second reading.
All right, and is there a second?
I will second, only because I like to have the discussion.
All right. That is usually what we do at this point. Councillor Danke has moved, and Councillor Benars has seconded the motion to adopt the recommended action. And is there discussion?
It sounded like we were both wholeheartedly in support of that motion as well.
All right, Councillor Danke, do you have discussion? I see.
I'm concerned a bit with public notification again, because this is back in front of us now, and it would cause a fee to be imposed or a tax, whichever way you want to look at it, on essentially all residents in some way or another. As well as the issue with our bonding, geo-bonding in general, and at the Finance Committee today, I'd asked to see those graphs again. Because this is truly a capital expense to change the lamping and add new poles, and we keep wandering the geo-bond indebtedness down to where anything we do then becomes a tax increase rather than slowly moving it up and trying to stay on a new flat line, which again then gets it out in front of the voters and they get to approve it or not. I know where this went as I came on council. If a lot of people don't know about this until it hits the papers or spreads by word of mouth, they're going to stick it back on the ballot again. We're going to get killed, and it doesn't do anything good for our trust with the voters. Back to back off of two other increases: water, sewer, then garbage, then an increase in franchise on the solid waste as well. It concerns me.
All right, are there other comments? I saw Councillor Anderson's hand up. Yes, Councillor Anderson.
Well, based on what I think is the
Microphone.
advice I
Get your mic.
Oh, sorry. Based on what I believe is how I read the email that Mr. Atchison sent to all council, I move to advance ordinance bill number 515. I'm amending Councillor Nansky's motion. I move to advance ordinance bill 515 to a second reading for enactment and direct staff to present for council consideration a fee resolution incorporating the alternative fee schedule as set forth in table 1A in the supplemental staff report.
All right, is there a second to that motion?
I'll second that.
All right, it's been moved by Councillor Anderson and seconded by Councillor Bennett. And is there discussion? Councillor Anderson?
Yes, thank you.
And then followed by Councillor McCoy.
I think there's been some, at every meeting I've been to discuss this ordinance, there's been some discomfort around the way the multiple housing units are proposed. And I look at it now, and if you do to the one that is, I think, 5 to 25 units, based on the amount that is proposed in the original ordinance, an apartment with 25 units would be paying 41 cents per dwelling unit, as opposed to $2.80. So I came up with some figures as I discussed in the open council meeting. I said, how do we do this for the second reading? And I was told I should prepare something for the staff to look at, which I did. I had discussion with the staff, and after some discussion, and after including the city manager on down, and after some discussion with that, I modified my original proposal to be more equitable, at least in my opinion, because there were different changes. So, and the staff was very helpful in helping me come up with the ranges and what to charge. So I think that's probably the least controversial aspect of my my motion. The second one relates to the commercial and industrial, and I've listened to the discussion tonight, and in my view, the commercial units, once again, are the units that people are traveling the streets and using the streetlights to get to those units. I'm a little concerned that we can't break up the commercial units to bigger and smaller units, but what I hear is there may be, both from Councilor Bednar's comments and my comments and questions, there may be a strip mall where there's only one person, one owner, and I think part of the argument about the commercial is, well, the small commercial businesses, this is maybe something they can't afford, as opposed to the bigger units. But if in fact a lot of the small commercial units are only on one stormwater bill, then it's not a strip mall of 4 buildings or 4 businesses are paying 4 times that amount. It's 1 times that amount split among the businesses. So it seems to me that this is the more fair and equitable way to do this. I also note that the comments about if you look at just the mileage, residential versus non-residential street mileage, the vast majority of the lights are not on the residential streets, they're on the commercial and arterial and collector streets and parkways, and the reason they're there is because more people use those, and more people use those to get to the commercial businesses. So I think that's a fair way to look at it, by charging more to the commercial. Thank you.
Okay. Councillor McCoy, followed by Councillor Lewis, followed by Councillor Benars.
And Councilor Anderson and I have talked about this. I completely disagree with his approach. It basically puts a very small percentage of the folks on this chart paying 35% of the total projected fee. And you know, if you're after big business, then go pick them out and put it out there. But to call most of these folks, 90% of the businesses in the state are small business, and that's 50 employees or less by definition. And of that 90%, almost 85% are 25 or less employees by definition. So when you start tacking these kind of fees onto those businesses, I think it's an anti-business statement. Absolutely opposed to it and will not support this proposal.
All right, thank you. Councillor Lewis, followed by Councillor Benars.
I agree with Councillor McCoy as far as the commercial aspect. Penalizing business for having consumers drive who are using the streetlights to their business doesn't make sense to me. As far as the multifamily, I'll use the example that's just gone in by my house, the extension of Linwood Avenue in Northwest. The street has 8 new streetlights. A multifamily of over 100 units was put in with all kinds of internal streetlights that were put in by the developer that I'm sure are charged back to the residents of the multifamily units in the form of rent. So they're already paying for the extra lights in their neighborhood. But they utilize, over the 100 units, they utilize only 6 streetlights. So they're getting less value because of the density of their living conditions. And I think that the city has gone through a great deal of time and energy in coming up with their formula, imperfect as it might be. But I think that it is the best proposal that we have tonight. And so I can't be in favor of the motion that's in front of us, but would be interested in going back to the original motion.
Councillor Benars.
Thank you. I appreciate Councillor Anderson's proposal. I was actually going the other direction, where I would like to flesh out more of this information. I would like to do more public outreach and push this issue off for a while rather than simply voting on an issue tonight. I just feel like that there's a lot of people out here who are not aware that we're bringing this back, that staff is bringing this back in front of us, and I'd like to see some more outreach before we really continue with this conversation.
Okay. Councillor Bennett.
Thank you. One of the current concerns I have with the motion is that I believe that one of the things that has occurred around the staff recommendation is substantial vetting with stakeholders, and despite concerns about whether or not the public has been notified, I don't know what the rest of the council's been doing, but I've been talking to my neighborhood groups for over a year about this, and if you haven't been doing that, take responsibility for the public not knowing about it, because that's where the problem lies. I understand. It's hard to vote for this stuff. It really is, particularly when you know, we all want so badly to fix up our streets and would take money away from the library or the police to do it. But this is our chance to come to grips with this issue, at least begin. I think what Councillor Anderson's motion does point up was one of the, Mr. Jenkins, I believe, one of his comments was that essentially we're looking at it the wrong way. What you want to look at is a fair distribution. The way you'd be looking at a gas tax, and I doubt anybody here is ready to vote for a gas tax. But so you come up with this imperfect, really imperfect, I mean, I don't think Mr. Fernandez would totally disagree that using this bill, this fee, this way, and its description of tax distribution or fee distribution, whatever you want to call it, is not a very precise or exacting description. And the only way you'd get there is to go to some sort of user tax, a gas tax, to get to that kind of who uses the road, who pays the fee, who pays the cost. So I don't know. I think the staff recommendation is as good as you get. And it reflects, I think, the difficulty we've had with revenue issues, including let's not vote again. That's always our answer on this kind of tough vote. And I think it's time to just kind of, if you're forced fixing up the streets, it's time to step up and take this vote. You can't always just say, I want to spend money on it, and I wish. You've got to stand up and vote for these fees once in a while, as imperfect as this thing is. I hope someday we'll take this on seriously and look at a way to resolve the funding description that Mr. Bechtel described, because we are just headed, and literally downhill if we don't come to grips with this city's street system. We've come to grips with water, we've come to grips with sewer, sorta, at least for this year, and with stormwater, but that we can't seem to come to grips with sidewalks and streets. And this will help. It isn't the answer for sure. But I really think we ought to vote for this, get this money into the budget, along with the $400,000 from the other franchise fee, and try to get some of these streets sealed. This is just shameful what's happening to these streets over the past few years.
All right, I'm going to interject because I want to make sure I get in the line here. I agree with Councillor Bennett and Councillor McCoy and Councillor Lewis in that I know from the last year and the year before that, that councillors have spent a great deal of time looking at these charts and massaging these numbers and figures, and we've had subcommittees of the council, I believe, that have worked on similar charts, maybe not on this one in particular. And I know staff has worked very hard to come to some equitable way to treat the residential and the commercial. And a couple of things that I remember from some time back when we talked about this is that we need to remember that people are not paying for the street light in front of their house. They're paying for the street lights that are from border to border, north to south, that we all enjoy and we all benefit from as we're moving around the city, whether we're going to school or we're going to work or we're going to recreational things or whatever we're doing. We are consuming those lights all over the city all of the time. Now, how do we charge for that? It is a difficult equation, but I think we've come up with just about the best one. And the other thing to remember is when we talk about the commercial users of streetlights, et cetera, are also many times residents. So they're paying as residents, and so they pay for their residence, and then they drive down the street to their beauty salon or their automotive repair shop or whatever, and then they're going to pay there too. So I don't think that trying to hold the commercial to a greater fee is fair at all. I think, in fact, it's less fair than what we're doing now for residential. The other thing I want to say about these fees is that we have really debated for a long time how to properly identify and be transparent in our fees. And I do think that this is a way to be very transparent about the cost of the lights that are on the poles and the actual maintenance of the poles and the monthly utility bills. So I certainly don't favor the substitute motion. I'm still in favor of the original proposal. Okay, and then I see that we have Councillor Dickey and Councillor Nanke and maybe Councillor Lewis again, I don't know. Dickey? Okay, Dickey, Nanke, and Councillor Benjamin. Thank you. Okay.
All right. Thank you, Mayor. First, I do want to thank staff for working on this and listening to what the public said a year and a half ago and coming back to us with some modifications based on that public testimony. I just remember, and I haven't been here as long as Councillor Nanke's been, but I remember early on, years ago, just having general discussion about this and where we were then compared to where we are now with what's been pared down, what has been taken out, what has been worked based on public testimony, based on council input. I feel like you've really listened and tried to come up with something that sort of brings everything together based on all the input. One of the reasons why I struggle with this is because some of the areas I represent are very low income. And $2.80 a month is a big deal to some families. But thinking about if those families were asked to, got together and said, hey, let's put some streetlights in our neighborhood, thinking about the hundreds of dollars they would have to pay in order to have that happen, hundreds or thousands, depending, hundreds each possibly, makes me feel like this is a little bit better balance, and this might be a good way to meet some of those needs in our neighborhoods. Also, some of our lower income neighborhoods tend to have more crime. And if we have dark streets, that can lend to that as well. So I would hope that when coming up with a schedule for replacement, should this go forward, that we're looking at some of those areas initially, taking a look at all the factors. I would appreciate that. Things I have heard from my constituents, even those who say, $2.80 is a stretch for me, are things like, but I don't have streetlights in my neighborhood and I would really like it. And can you come up with, or is there a way for people who are low income, elderly, disabled to receive a discount or something? And you have addressed that in this. And Councilor Anderson, I agree with your sentiment of the multifamily. But that said, multifamily doesn't use, per unit doesn't use as many streetlights. If you divide up the amount of streetlights per the density, and also thinking of, at one time at least, part of my ward had the highest density of multifamily in the city and probably the lowest income multifamily in the city. So for that reason, I think, just the way it is, just the way it's proposed seems reasonable. Seems like 41 cents or however it calculates out to be per unit seems reasonable for a multifamily unit for the density and the amount of lighting around it. So this is not perfect, but we do have some issues, and we have been cutting since I got here 6 years ago. We have tightened our belts, and we've cut services, we've merged departments, we continue to see our streets in decline because we're not able to maintain them at the level we need to maintain them. So I will support the proposal as it's recommended by staff.
Thank you. And let's see, Councillor Nanke, followed by, I'm sorry, I really lost
Councillor Benjamin was after me.
Lewis, I think was on.
Benjamin after
Councillor
me.
Benjamin, all right. Thank you. Councillor Nanke, then.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. As to the motion that's on the floor right now, I just kind of took a look back, knowing that in the water, sewer, stormwater realm, commercial is on its last legs of taking a major brunt as they're rotating over to the stormwater based on impervious surface fees as well. And I mean, if you look at these numbers, they pale in consideration to the large commercial, which saw an increase of 10.5% this year, equaling an extra $271.29 a month in fees based on that crossover as well. And so they're not immune to that when you look at large commercial and what we consider large commercial. To maneuver that over and in the newer alternate fee schedule raises more money again as well, which takes more out of typically that sector as well. So I'm not in favor of the modified, but I'm not necessarily in favor of, as I mentioned originally, because this crisis could be anywhere in the city's budget. We purposely put it in transportation. We had met as the Save Our Streets Committee to move that $2.7 million, I think it is, all the way over to streets, which would have funded them. And they would have been quite happy and would have lasted us quite a long time. We could be asking the voters to vote on a library fee right now, or a parks fee, because we're not going to be able to open the parks to public all year long. There was a nexus with the water sewer franchise fees. We're able to charge it as a government. If I were in the legislature on that piece, I would have said, what are you talking about? Because the people who own that water and sewer system are the ratepayers. They're the citizens of Salem, and we're charging them a franchise fee on what they own. And so I still have big issues with that. But the biggest issue is we can move that bucket anywhere and say that we're just short in the general fund. Transportation funds were never technically intended to pay for the entirety of the entire system, including landscaping strips and pavement and street lights and that we, so depending on where vote goes on the front one, since we're kind of arguing both motions at the same time, I won't support the motion that's on the floor right now.
All right, Councillor Benjamin.
Two of the neighborhood associations that I support basically had issues with the inequality of multifamily housing. As Councilor Anderson brought up, it could be like 40 cents per household, and the folks that I visited with who do own their own homes thought that that was that didn't seem right. They need to be a little bit more equitable. Having said that, though, what the staff has come up with at this time, it isn't going to be perfect, but it's the best thing we got going right now. Understanding 3 years ago when I got delved into the city budget and the government workings, where's the money going, how is it coming in, there's some real startling facts that most people don't even take into account. And all they know is they're going to get pinched for $280. It's just understanding of why that has to happen, and that this is a very good proposal to be able to fix a lot of different things with just $280. Starting your own public light district, many of my wards are, economically challenged, if you will, and I don't see anybody coming up with $600 to put a light on their telephone pole, or pay them the monthly maintenance of it. Whatever that is, we never found that out, but that's just additional money. That's going to be far more than $280 a month. Some folks say, hey, I don't have any street lights, so why should I pay it? Well, you're driving around town and you're enjoying those lights. I know I have 3 of them very close proximity to my house, and I have very little crime, knock on wood. But just down the street where it's more county, actually county owned, and dark, there is a lot of crime. Graffiti is rampant in Ward 6. So I, for one, will unfortunately not be voting for the motion on the floor, but yet the staff recommendation makes the most sense at this time. Thank you.
Thank you. And I think our city manager had some comments she'd
I
like to
do.
make.
I wanted to address two things. First, I wanted to talk about the public outreach that was done this time, because I don't think we gave a good accounting of that. There have been, the ones that I can think of here sitting at the table, there have been newspaper stories. We've had it on the Facebook. We've met with neighborhood chairs and said we're happy to come and speak to any neighborhood association who would like us to do that. We've met with groups who've asked us to come. Two of those were the Chamber of Commerce, who's supporting it, and the Association of Realtors, who I think you said had 700 members who are in support of it. We've had it social media that council's asked us to do. We've also had it on Twitter. We've had it on CCTV. Mark was on a radio station. It's been on the city's website. We've had city council meetings and council work sessions. It's been in community connections. So we've used a very broad base of public outreach. The only thing I think we didn't do this time was go to every single neighborhood association, because it takes several months to get to all of them, and didn't send out postcards. But there's been a lot of public outreach, and I have to say, in my probably 35 years of working in cities, I've never seen a difficult issue where people didn't come and say, this is the first I've heard of it. And that's because it's very difficult to get the word to every single person in a community. On the GO bond issue, the ones I know that the council's talked about having come in front of you are the potentially a police facility. After that, it's going to be about time to do the fire apparatus in a few years, and then another, we know we're hundreds of millions behind in street and bridges projects. And so generally, council has gone out for bigger issues for a GO bond rather than something that's just a couple of $1 million that we can do borrowing for, because of the expenses, the GO bond expenses that are associated with that. So that was just some additional information.
That's helpful, very helpful. Okay, we have a motion on the floor, which is an amended motion. Is that correct, Councilor Anderson? Or a substitute?
It's a motion to amend.
It's a, okay. So it is a motion to amend.
If I can restate it, it's
Right, that would be
basically
helpful.
the staff recommendation with a request that staff come back with a fee resolution that adopts the table 1A in the supplemental staff report.
All right, that's the motion on the floor. It was made by Councilor Anderson and seconded by Councilor Bennett. Is there any further discussion on that motion? We'll call for the question. All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed signify by saying nay. Nay. All right, would the nays please raise your hands so that the recorder can officially record. All right. Have you got that? All right, thank you. The motion fails. Thank you very much. Then do we go back to the original
Main motion now.
motion? All right, now we're back to this original motion, which I believe was made by Councilor Nanke and was seconded by Councilor Benars. All right, is there discussion on that motion? Councilor Lewis.
Real quick, I'm going to vote for this motion, although I got to tell you, $8.9 million in gas tax, $1.5 million left for streets. That's not good. There's good and bad and everything in this proposal. The idea of setting up a specific fund for streetlights makes a lot of sense. We're setting up a specific fund for streetlights so we can generate more income for street maintenance. And that's the way it is. You know what? The city is, I think, run as efficiently as it can possibly be run. It is in need of additional revenue. It makes sense to do it the way we're doing it. It's been redone and relooked at for years now. And we have heard over again, and I agree, it's imperfect. Some people get a great deal. Would I rather live in an apartment so I don't only have to spend 40 cents a month, or would I rather live in a house and spend $2.80? I live in a house, I'll pay the $2.80. For me, it comes down to the quality of life, and I think Salem's worth it, so I'm going to vote for the motion.
Councilor Benars?
Thank you. I will not be voting for the motion. I've struggled on this one for a long time. And one of the things that comes to my mind every time I start to think about it is that we've turned our water sewer bill into a utility bill. That's what it's frankly being called. But it opens the door to so many other different things that could be added on to it. I think that the problem that we have is not necessarily, yes, it is a money problem. I understand that. But it is caused by policy more than anything else. I agree with what Councilor Nanke has mentioned in reference to, we choose to fund certain things within the city, but not other things. And at this point, we've kind of chosen not to fund street maintenance out of all the money that we receive. This is not a permanent solution. It's going to come back to us 5 to 7 years from now. We're going to have to come back and likely increase this fee, as we seem to always have to increase. There's never a decrease in any of this. I'm nervous. I'm afraid that it is going to be one of those things where there's going to be an outcry from the public, and we continue with our fees. We're a fee-based system now, less of a property tax-based system, and you're going to have people coming out and leading the political game of Measure 5 and 49 all over again, but with fees. The limitations on property taxes. They're going to say the same thing eventually about fees. Anyway, I just cannot at this point vote for this motion as it stands. I might consider, by the way, it if I knew, when we talk about using a portion of the gas tax for street maintenance, that also is a policy. Now, we heard from Peter Fernandez, I believe it was, anyway, the issue there was that we have a lot of holes in our budget. So if we save ourselves the $1.4 million, not all of that or any of that has to go to street maintenance. There's a lot of other buckets that need to be filled within the city budget at this point. So without a guarantee of X dollars or a percent or something going towards street maintenance, it's another one of those things where we're taking this money and we're going to say we're going to do it on street maintenance, but there's no guarantee that in the next 2 years we're going to change our policy and it's not going to go to street maintenance.
Okay, I'm getting a signal from Peter Fernandez, Director of Public Works.
Thank you, Mayor. And I don't like interjecting in council deliberations. But Councilor Benars, I just want to be clear that what we were saying is that not all the money would go to pavement maintenance. It would all go to transportation operations and maintenance. It's just that there are other expenses, so that ultimately it's not all going to maintaining the pavement itself. But there is no gas tax money is going to, or none of this $1.4 million that is saved is going to go to any other city operation other than inside of the transportation system. So I just want to make sure that we're all clear on that.
All right, Councilor Nanke.
Thank you, Director Fernandez, for that, because again, all of that money stays in there. We'll get some extra. We have holes. We have $400,000 that may or may not go to street maintenance. We'd moved across. Future council could do whatever with it and expand something else off on the side rather than get to the pavement, which is where we're seriously in a deficit. I want to comment in the respect that the community a lot of times says spend the money the right way. And we saw several communications to council saying, why are you spending money on this when you could spend it on street or police? The money that we're spending on things that they don't like either can't be spent on that. There's little buckets, and the monies have to go, if they're talking about the bridge to Minto Island, that's an urban renewal. No, that money cannot be used for police. It can't be used for streets outside of the urban renewal area. I suppose you could do it inside. But we are down to where we can't just cut anything more without cutting services. And so 100% behind what we have and what staff can do with that now. And knowing that, in council goal setting last week, we talked about having to have that discussion on what kind of a city do we want to be. And I would prefer to have that discussion before I put another fee out that's then going to automatically escalate in 6 to 8 years, and those people who wanted a streetlight still won't have one, and then we're going to raise their fees on them again, and they will start getting disenfranchised because we're expanding a system that isn't sustainable in and of itself right now. It's a tough issue, trying to get some more community support, but how many of them will get what they're looking for in that time? And again, we'll just add to our O&M, which is the curse in parks, the curse in pavement. As our city systems expand, there must be a sweet spot where it doesn't cost that much to replace this many miles of pipe. When all of our stuff hits 100 years old, I'll leave it at that.
All right, there is a motion on the floor. Is there any further comment? All right, we'll call, yes, Councillor Benjamin?
I stated before, I have 3 streetlights in the immediate vicinity of my house. So if we pass this, I will put $9 toward the helping fund for folks that, you know, need a little help.
Thank you. All right. It's time to call for the question. All those in favor of the motion, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, say nay.
Nay.
Will the nays please raise your hands and the recorder can record those votes. All right. Councilors Anderson, Nanke, and Benars. All right. Motion passes. Thank you very much. I'm going to give us a little bit of a recess here so that people can kind of regroup, and we'll get back together again.
Would you like me to leave a quick stretch for flex?
And absolutely everybody was courageous enough to come right back in here. I love it. Thank you all.
They saw you with a hammer in your hand.
Okay, the meeting is called back to order, and we're at point 5A, special orders of business. And also, we'll do 5A, and then we'll address the item that was pulled, 3.2A. So we'll start with 5A. And we have a motion for a recommended action. Councillor Nanke, would you like to present that?
Yes, and I would move staff recommendation. If I can get a second, I'll speak to it a little more.
All right, it's been moved by Councillor Nanke and seconded by Councillor Benars.
And
Discussion.
essentially, with the retirement of our current city manager, we're looking at appointing Deputy City Manager Casey Duncan as an interim, actually starting on March 31st. The agenda actually reads April 1st, but there would be a portion of time that day after Linda left where we wouldn't have any. So that would not be a good thing. And following that, to direct staff to negotiate an employment contract with Mr. Duncan for that interim appointment, and then to direct staff to engage an appropriate search firm to conduct the recruitment process as well. And we've been meeting a couple of times. We'll be coming back to council here soon after we kind of look through some of the qualifications, verify everybody's on the same page, bring in the contractor then, and start working forward in earnest. And hopefully, 6 to 11 weeks. We can wrap this thing up.
6 to 11 weeks to the hire?
Yes. Yep.
Wow.
If we're really, really lucky and don't have to go out multiple times. I'm an optimist.
Yes.
Casey's not going to stay any longer.
That's right.
It's a limited term contract.
Okay.
And hopefully we'll have a limited term in between that as well. I mean, Linda's still going to be here for another 6
weeks.
6 weeks. So it's how long do we leave Casey floating out on his own there? We have a ton of staff who is well qualified that could step into a similar role and all have their own skills. And I think worst case, they can all come together and we will persevere with no negative implications to city operations during that time.
I think that's right. And so the motion on the floor is for the 2 items that you see under 5A, And one is the appointment of deputy city manager, and the second is to direct staff to engage an appropriate search firm.
Right.
Councillor Bennett.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Just a brief comment. I think we are so lucky to have Casey Duncan here to take on the acting city manager job. You can think of the moment we might not have had that. We've been very fortunate to have had Bob Wells, Linda Norris, Casey Duncan in that position who could step in and really keep us on an even keel. Casey took us through the budget last time. He's got a really great working knowledge of the budget, which after listening tonight will be a real challenge as we go into it. I am just, having worked with him over the past several years, I'm just personally very excited, and I think as a council, we are going to be really pleased with his performance. I think all you have to do is watch the little TV, the YouTube presentation. I mean, the multi-talented Casey Duncan is, I keep waiting for the weather. That's the only thing the guy doesn't cover. So.
You could do that too. All right. So the motion on the floor, is there any further discussion? All right. All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, say nay. Motion carries unanimously. Thank you. All right. The item 3.2A, and I believe Councillor Anderson, do you have a motion?
Yes, I move the staff recommendation to appoint Mayor Anna Peterson and Councilor Jim Lewis to the board of the Hospital Facility Authority with their respective terms, both terms ending December 31st, 2016.
Sorry.
Thank you. It's been moved by Councillor Anderson and seconded by Councillor Nanke. And is there discussion?
Yes, I
Councillor
just have a
Anderson?
brief discussion.
Yes.
As you know, my ward is where the hospital is located, or at least part of the hospital is located. And in reading the summary in the background, I see where it says the purpose of the Hospital Facility Authority is to acquire, lease, sell, and otherwise dispose of hospital facilities and authorize issuance of bonds and other obligation. The only question I have, just so the public can be aware of all this, is what, if any, was the Hospital Facility Authority involvement in the original purchase of the old school for the blind property?
Absolutely none whatsoever. What that board does is to simply deal with the consideration and approval of the plans by either Capital Manor or Salem Hospital when they are seeking revenue bonds or when they are restructuring their debt. Now, our city attorney may have some information to add to that.
Dan Atchison, City Attorney. I spoke to Doug Goh, who is the bond counsel for the Hospital Authority, and he confirmed, to the best of his knowledge, no bond funds, which is the authority's role, the Facility Authority's board's role. No bond funds went to purchase the old blind school property. However, the bond funds will be used to build the rehab facility and the parking.
Thank you very much. That's only reason I brought it up.
Great. Okay. Then the motion on the floor is to approve the recommendation. And all those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye. 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 Opposed, say nay. Motion carries unanimously. Thank you. We have no unfinished business. There are 3 information reports in your binder, 2 of which we heard about this evening, which I thought were both great reports. And now we'll move to ordinances. We have no first readings, but a second reading. Would the recorder please call the roll on the second reading?
Ordinance Bill Number 2214 relating to membership of the Planning Commission and amending Salem Revised Code Section 6.010. Councilor Bernards?
Aye.
Councilor Lewis?
Aye.
Councilor Bennett?
No.
Councilor Anderson?
No.
Councilor Nanke?
Aye.
Councilor McCoy?
Aye.
Councilor Dickey?
Aye.
Councilor Benjamin?
Aye.
Mayor Peterson?
Aye. The ordinance passes, and I believe, do we need to record the nay votes on that as well? Would you please raise your hands if you voted no? Councilors Bennett and Anderson. Okay. And would the recorder please take the roll call on the item 8.2 B, ordinance bill number 6-15.
Ordinance Bill 615, relating to the use of recreational vehicles outside tourist parks, amending Salem Revised Code, Section 30.655. Counselor Lewis?
Aye.
Counselor Bennett?
Aye.
Counselor Anderson?
Aye.
Counselor Nanki?
Aye.
Counselor McCoy?
Aye.
Counselor Dickey?
Aye.
Counselor Benjamin?
Aye.
Counselor Benars?
Aye.
Mayor Peterson?
Aye. Thank you. Ordinance passes unanimously. Do we have anyone signed up for public comment? We do. Oh, they left?
I was gonna, we should have just pulled him in front of the meeting.
Left. All right. And I see Mr. Skirbo with his hand up. Did you want to testify on something other than any of our agenda items?
Other than agenda items.
Right. All right. Welcome.
Yes.
All right. State your
Welcome.
name.
Ron Sturban.
Thank you.
Again, as a pilot coming into Salem, I want to say thanks to the city of Salem and everyone who put forth the funds for the airport lighting. I can't tell you how much safer I feel.
Thank you. That is an agenda item, but I'm glad to hear that the pilots are pleased with the work that was done out
I'm
there.
a pilot, and I'm really thankful of my city and support that I get, and as well as my friends. Number two, I like going to a football game, pro football game, the Seahawks, and paying for my fair share to see the football game in my seat. When I go to Portland to an outdoor theater, I bring my own seat and pay for my own space. When I go down to the waterfront, I pay an admission to get in to use. I like user fees. They're great. Number 4 on the item is, I don't understand, and I hear this all the time, people are uninformed. Why don't City Hall here have 2 LED reader boards up front that display agenda items that are coming up for the public in LED, light-saving LED?
We could just have it up in the sky.
That's right. I mean, after all, I mean, we got them on elementary schools, right? Telling PTA and the whole works. We need that here. The next item I have is, and I brought this up before, Linda Norris, our city manager, has not had her picture up there.
Yes.
Robert Wells says 2004 to now.
Oh, up there. Okay.
Yeah.
I'm going to bring it up again.
Mr. Sturba, I did finally have my photograph taken, and it will be up soon. I haven't wanted to sit here and look at myself.
How long have you been the city manager?
I've been city manager, I'm in my 8th year, so it's time.
That's a long time to develop a negative, I'll tell you.
I know, okay.
Anyway, I'd sure like to see that updated.
It will be.
All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Appreciate you coming, always. Good to see you. And there's no further business to come before this body, and we are adjourned.